One Piece, Awakening the Skill Tree System. When Shen Yuan enters the world of One Piece with a system, what sparks will collide? At the beginning, he was adopted as a grandson by Garp, so he has a background. He recognized Mère as his elder sister, so he has family affection. With the assistance of the skill tree system, he has strength. What else do you need to plan? Clear mind and calm planning? That's just an excuse for the weak. Chapter 1. Be my grandson. Caucosia Village. Strong winds gathered dark clouds, and a wave washed a boy who looked about 13 or 14 years old onto the shore. Why is there someone here? Yet. I wonder whose child it is. Everyone couldn't help but talk in confusion. At this time, the young man lying on the shore slowly opened his eyes and was looking at the scene in front of him blankly. You are. A slim woman in front of him stepped forward, took a closer look at the boy's injuries, and only breathed a sigh of relief after confirming that he was fine. I am Bellemere from the village of Caucosia. Can you tell me your name, young man? Bellemere smiled gently and raised his hand to help the boy up from the ground. My name is Shen Yuan. Wait a moment. I'll turn on the phone. The young man was Shen Yuan. His soul had traveled into this body and was currently receiving a large amount of information pouring into his mind. Shen Yuan was stunned. He frantically searched for his original body's memories in his mind. After receiving it with all his strength, Shen Yuan got an important message. What the hell, he's actually an orphan. As we all know, the protagonist. At this point, Shen Yuan said with certainty, I am an orphan. As soon as these words came out, the whole place fell into silence. Shen Yuan said no more, closed his eyes and accepted the fact with a heavy heart. Everyone present understood and accepted this fact. Where are you from? Shen Yuan did not answer, but he felt a rustling sound coming from behind him, and he couldn't help but frown. No, something's wrong. Why do I always feel like someone is peeping at me? Roar. As predicted. Suddenly, a huge roar came from the sea in the distance. Then a bloody mouth with white fangs appeared and rushed towards Shen Yuan to bite. This king of the sea is quite large, and his bloody mouth can hold 10 Shen Yuans. Just as everyone was stunned, someone in the crowd shouted. Run! What are you standing there for? Looking at the huge monster in front of them, the two of them got goosebumps all over their bodies. Roar! There was another loud roar, as if trying to intimidate the weak human in front of him. Now! Shen Yuan burst out with unprecedented power. Come on! He pushed Bellemere who was beside him out. He raised his fist, stared fiercely at the Sea King in front of him, and was ready to die heroically. Go back to where you came from. He is an orphan anyway, so let him die. I was thinking this in my mind, but I didn't expect the bloody mouth of the Sea King to fall. Ouch! Swallow it in one gulp. Swallow it in one gulp. The boy in front of me just disappeared like that? Bellemere, who was pushed away, staggered 2 steps on the ground. Before he could react, the giant teeth of the Sea King were approaching his body. Bellemere looked panicked and punched hard. At this critical moment, the hero debut. Oh! A violent collision suddenly exploded from behind the Sea King. The Sea King's body, which was in motion, suddenly stiffened. Sea King, I seem to have lost the rear. Then he fell straight to the ground. Even Shen Yuan was spat out from his mouth. Shen Yuan had a dull expression on his face and looked around blankly. Boom! An old man with white hair and wearing a navy cloak. At this moment, he was walking towards Shen Yuan with heavy steps. One step at a time. Really? One step at a time. At the same time, an ethereal broadcasting voice sounded in Shen Yuan's mind. It has been detected that the host is experiencing a life or death crisis. The skill tree system has been awakened and is being bound to the host's identity information. Skill tree. Shen Yuan was stunned, and didn't pay any attention to the old man beside him. Instead, he looked at this system called skill tree with great interest. Boy, your courage is commendable. This is rare. What's your name? Shen Yuan evaded the question by saying, Shen Yuan. Garp nodded and looked at Shen Yuan. Just as he was about to make further inquiries, his attention was attracted by Bellemere standing next to him. You are. Garp became interested and became curious as he looked at Bellemere who was saluting in front of him. Reporting to Vice Admiral Garp, my subordinate Bellemere, a former member of the Navy, has now retired. Belmare felt very guilty. If his identity as a deserter is exposed, what will happen to his 2 children? Garp scratched his head, seemingly having no memory of this person at all. He stood up and waved his hand. If you don't think about it, just forget it. Then, Garp looked again at Shen Yuan, who was standing aside with a dazed expression. Shen Yuan had already figured it out by now. This system is not like other systems with cheats. In short, this system now has 3 functions. First, check your current location. The second is to view your own attributes and identity information. The third is the role of the skill tree. You can use various means to upgrade, such as defeating and killing your opponents. Or it becomes a profession and completes the task. You can get 1 skill point after each level up, and the maximum level of a skill is 20. Shen Yuan carefully looked at the skills in the skill tree. Low-level ones such as physical enhancement, speed enhancement, etc. Advanced ones are like the Navy 6 styles and the 3 colors of Haki. It's even more tricky and even has some fruit abilities, which is simply amazing. Where are you from, kid? Garp asked again. I'm from Windmill Village. Shen Yuan stared at Garp blankly, looking very serious on the surface. In fact, he was checking out this strange skill tree. Good boy, from Windmill Village. Do you recognize my grandson? Garp was a little surprised and also a little shocked. This scene turned into a tangle in the eyes of others. That kid Luffy? I know him, but I have never met him. Good boy, are you willing to follow me and join the Navy? Shen Yuan thought about it. Admittedly, if I join the Navy, as Garp said, there really is no danger. Under Garp's protection, he can indeed survive until Luffy goes out to sea. Then follow Luffy out to sea and witness the myriad things in this world. His own system does not allow him to live in a greenhouse. Navy Grandpa. Before Shen Yuan finished speaking, Garp interrupted. My name is Garp, and from today on, you are my grandson. Shen Yuan's face turned dark. What the hell? How come this old guy looks exactly like that old man with white beard? A son who is recognized everywhere. A man who recognizes grandchildren everywhere. Grandpa Garp, I think I'm still young and I want to live on my own for a while. Garp, you don't want to be a pirate, do you? Shen Yuan's face turned darker and darker. How could this old guy discriminate against people based on their status? No, 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 even if I don't join the Navy, I won't become a pirate. Cap breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, a fire of faith suddenly emerged from his heart. The idea of training the Navy King emerged spontaneously in his mind. My dear grandson, please stay here for a while and don't run around. I will come back to find you when I have time. Shen Yuan, why do I feel like I'm being kept in captivity? Garp suddenly said seriously, you come to raise my grandson for the time being, and I will give you some subsidies regularly. Belmare pointed at himself and said. Me? Let me raise you. Say it. Garp waved. Bogart was very tactful and held a bag full of Bailey's money. He handed it to Garp, who then handed it to Belmare. I'll leave it to you for the time being, let's go. Then, the two turned around and gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. Shen Yuan was stunned. What the hell? Inexplicably experienced a life or death crisis. There's a grandfather for no apparent reason? Belmare also reacted and patted Shen Yuan's shoulder heavily. Come home with me. Let's have a good meal today. Hello, my name is Nami, and we are going to live together from now on. Nochigo hid timidly behind Belmare with a weak expression on his face. Hello Nami, I'm Shen Yuan. We're going to live together from now on. Please take care of me. Belmare was also very satisfied with the child. Judging from his behavior just now, he has a kind heart. What's more, it was a blessing in disguise and I got a lot of money. Great. Nami waved her hands happily. In this regard, the group went to Belmare's home. Get ready to welcome a new member of the family. Chapter 2, First Encounter. Close Combat. The Kokozia village also became more lively due to the arrival of Kapu. All the villagers in the village were discussing the conversation between Garp and Shen Yuan just now. It is not only the villagers of Kokozia village who are having a great time. And the Belmare family. At this moment, Shen Yuan was carrying a stone in the yard and exercising his body. Brother Shen Yuan, aren't you tired? Nami asked naively. Tired, How can I not be tired? Then why do you train so hard? Why? Shen Yuan was about to say that it was for his skills, but his mind suddenly went blank and he just made up a reason. How can I protect you if you don't become stronger? These words made him tremble all over. For a child who has been deprived of fatherly love since childhood, the destructive power of this sentence is extremely huge. Oh, is that so? Shen Yuan didn't notice Nami's abnormality, his own attributes in his mind were slowly growing. Physique plus 0.01. Physique plus 0.01. Constitution plus 0.01. Because of training physical fitness, you get experience points plus 0.1. Children, it's time to eat. Belmere brought a plate of orange pie to the table. There was also a roasted chicken on the table, emitting an enticing aroma. After Shen Yuan finished his exercise, he did not rush to eat, but took a shower first. And take this opportunity to check your own system. Name, Shen Yuan. Age, 12 years old. Identity, villager of Kokozia village. Physique, 0.3/100. Agility, 0/100. Speed, 0/100. Strength, 0.28/100. I have meat to eat on my first day here. Shen Yuan wiped his wet hair and joked as he looked at the table full of delicious food. Isn't this all thanks to you? Belmere said with a smile. Brother Shen Yuan, you are so handsome. Shen Yuan washed off the dirt on his body, and his delicate facial features even made Belmere's heart beat. Belmere shook his head, shook off these evil thoughts, and called Shen Yuan to come over for dinner. Nami happily ate the orange pie in her hand, and from time to time she stared at her brother who suddenly appeared in front of her. Especially what Shen Yuan said just now, deeply touched Nami's heart. Brother Shen Yuan, you are from Windmill Village, so you must have seen the outside world since you drifted all the way here, right? There was an amazing light flashing in Nami's eyes. Nochigo also raised his head, revealing a look of strong desire. Shen Yuan racked his brains and used the world he saw in his previous life to start talking to the few people. When talking about the exciting parts, Nami grabbed Shen Yuan's arm with stars in her eyes. Well, that's about it. Come on and eat. After you're done, Nami-chan, you'll have to exercise with me. Okay, okay. Nami cheered happily and finished the orange pie in her hand in just 2 or 3 bites. Shen Yuan was not to be outdone, he ate at least half of the roast chicken in front of him. I've eaten more than half of the orange pie. Afterwards, Shen Yuan took Nami out in a hurry. Belmer was still not satisfied after listening to Shen Yuan's story. Although I joined the army, my knowledge is not as broad as Shen Yuan in front of me. What about the 3 Gorges Dam, the towering Buddha statues, the best mountains and rivers in the world? Belmer smiled. This young man was extremely steady and kind, and he became more and more looking forward to his achievements. Time passed day by day. Nami and Shen Yuan started exercising outdoors, and gradually Nojiko also joined in. At this point, the 3 little guys became friends. After a period of time, Shen Yuan successfully upgraded. Without hesitation, he selected the low-level skill Physical Fitness Enhancement LV1, which increased his physical fitness by %. Feeling the power he possessed, Shen Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. It's barely enough to deal with some low-level pirates now. Run! The pirates are coming! The pirates are coming! Someone shouted something at the entrance of the village, causing some villagers who were working to freeze in silence. Then he stretched out his legs and ran away. You lowly people, hand over all your valuables to me, or I will kill you. A group of pirates had ferocious looks on their faces and laughed slightly at the fleeing villagers. Upon hearing this, Shen Yuan rushed to the village entrance. Looking at the pirates in front of him, and then at the pirate ship in the distance. A pirate flag fluttered in the wind, the pattern on it was 2 crossed long swords with a strange horn in the middle. I'm the second in command of the Twin Blades pirates. If you know what's best for you, hand over all your valuables to me. Shen Yuan stopped talking nonsense, took 2 quick steps, grabbed a pirate holding a knife with one hand, and punched the pirate in the face. The pirate fell to the ground, covering his face and wailing in pain. Shen Yuan picked up the dagger on the ground, hesitating whether to kill the pirate in front of him. This is a gap that must be crossed. This world is the best embodiment of the law of the jungle. If you don't eat the small fish, then the many big fish will eat you without hesitation. After hesitating for a few seconds, suddenly, a pirate showed a ferocious look on his face and raised his knife to kill Shen Yuan. Oh! A gunshot rang out and the pirate fell to the ground. Mère breathed a sigh of relief, with steam still coming out of the muzzle of the gun in his hand. Don't be so stubborn, little brat. Shen Yuan reacted immediately. The dagger in his hand stabbed the pirate's aorta hard. Pfft! Congratulations to the host for killing an ordinary pirate, experience points increased by 20. The pirate's blood splashed all over Shen Yuan's face. He did not hesitate, and raised his sword again to block the attack of the other pirate, and raised his right foot to kick him in the lower body. Oh! Before the pirate could scream, the dagger had already pierced his chest. Pfft! The pirates who died one after another watched a child running rampant on the battlefield. I was stunned for a moment. After the reaction, I was extremely angry. In an instant, all the pirates rushed towards Shen Yuan. Little brat, just stand there and don't move. I'm going to break one of your arms. Shen Yuan's face darkened. I actually felt a bit uncomfortable after killing someone. But at this moment, it was instantly broken by this incredible statement. What the hell, how can you be a pirate without a brain? You're going to be wiped out right after you set sail. Shen Yuan methodically dodged the attacks one after another. He dodged the fatal blow, but his body was still scratched by the sharp weapon. He raised the dagger in his hand and slashed at the waist of one of the pirates. Pfft! The pirate screamed and fell to the ground. Mère also assisted Shen Yuan in killing the enemy from the rear. She knew Shen Yuan's skills very well. Puff! Another pirate fell to the ground. The other pirates did not dare to step forward for a moment. They looked at Shen Yuan, who was covered in blood, with shock in their eyes. What's wrong, boys? Did you run into the navy? The man was wearing a tall hat and a red windbreaker, holding two machetes. The look he gave Shen Yuan at this moment was extremely dangerous. From time to time, it stuck out its long tongue, looking extremely ferocious and sharp. Brother, this kid killed many of our brothers. The long-tongued man frowned and said, I'll come after he dies. I'm going to make this little brat die here today. Shen Yuan killed another pirate and threw him aside. What a piece of junk. The blade of the low-quality dagger in my hand has been bent and is almost turning into a fucking saw. He picked up a short knife again, and his eyes met with the long-tongued man's. A big battle is about to happen. Chapter 3. Wait a moment, I am going to level up. Kill me. The long-tongued man attacked angrily, and the blade of his long sword swung out quickly, even causing a sound of air explosions. Mère also picked up a long knife and rushed to Shen Yuan in an instant to block the attack for him. Wait a minute. The long-tongued man was stunned. His body, which had been moving at high speed, suddenly stopped in place. I'll level up. The long-tongued man was stunned. Experience points are full. Level increased to level 3. Get bonus skill points 1. After allocating the skill points, he looked at the attribute panel again with anticipation. Physical fitness level 2, increase physical fitness by %. Shen Yuan was stunned. Both of them were dumbfounded. Long tongue, how can a life and death battle be stopped? Are you thinking of practicing taekwondo here? Shen Yuan, is this second level physical fitness bonus so meager? One skill increased it to 5%? If I had known, I would have added it to other skills. But now that things have come to this, Shen Yuan had no choice but to accept his fate. Bring it on. Shen Yuan took a step forward, and the short knife was as sharp as a ghostly poisonous snake, stabbing quickly towards the long tongue's throat. The long tongue reacted quickly as well. Although the long-handled weapon was a bit heavy, it still provided effective resistance. The attack failed once, Shen Yuan dodged and changed position again, punching at Changxi's chin. A standard uppercut delivered perfectly. Changxi's eyes were full of stars and he quickly swung his weapon, but the heavy sword posed no threat to Shen Yuan at all. The dagger attacked again, and the blade slashed across Longxi's chest, leaving a long scar. The wound started bleeding instantly, staining the long tongue's relatively gorgeous clothes red. Shen Yuan did not hold back. While Changxi was stunned, he swung at Changxi's neck again. The long tongue covered his injured neck and looked at the boy in front of him in disbelief. The two long swords fell to the ground with a clang. Before he could react, he was hit in the abdomen by a dagger again. The dagger pierced his abdomen, and under the influence of pain and blood, his consciousness gradually became blurred. Pfft! Long tongue fell to the ground without leaving a last word. The other pirates were all dumbfounded, and no one acted rashly. Kill the captain of the East Sea Pirates. Level increased to level 5. Congratulations to the host for reaching level 5. The right to use some skills is now open. Shen Yuan was promoted twice, and after checking, he learned the Navy's 6 styles of mist kick and shave. Pull out the short knife stuck in the long tongue, bringing up a handful of blood. Looking at the pirates is like looking at a bunch of leaks. After a bloody storm, many pirates fell under Shen Yuan's knife. Throwing away the dagger, Garp came over at last, hurriedly. Looking at the many pirates lying on the ground in extremely miserable deaths, and then looking at Shen Yuan who was standing in the field covered in blood, he couldn't help but gasp. "Are you okay, grandson?" Shen Yuan nodded nonchalantly. After going through this baptism, Shen Yuan had lost his childishness and had completely changed. "Clean up the scene," Garp ordered casually. "Grandpa Garp, give me these swords. I will study forging when I have time." Garp was stunned. "Are you interested in swordsmanship?" Shen Yuan nodded and said nothing. Garp glanced at Shen Yuan and without saying anything, he ordered the marines to deliver the weapons to the backyard of Belmere's house. "Shen Yuan, how did you do it?" Garp walked forward and carefully checked Shen Yuan's body. He was relieved to find that he was fine. Shen Yuan didn't know what to say, so he just made up an excuse to get away with it. "Okay, your courage is very commendable. During this period of time, I will personally teach you how to practice." "How about that?" Shen Yuan was stunned. If he could learn armament haki in advance, he could save a skill point. "Okay." Shen Yuan's eyes sparkled with gold, and he looked at Garp as if he was looking at a leak. Garp instantly got goosebumps all over his body, feeling like a prey being stared at. Belmere's house. A group of people sat around a table. At this moment, the originally carefree Belmere is now as well behaved as a kitten. Aegeon stood aside solemnly, looking at Cap who was eating orange pie in front of him. Kaplan said in a loud voice, "Little brat, it seems that you haven't fallen behind in your practice during this period." Shen Yuan smiled and nodded, and was about to speak. But he was interrupted by Nami beside him. "Of course, I've seen brother Shen Yuan training day and night." Garp smiled and looked at the 3 children in front of him. Suddenly, he thought of his 3 children. "Come back to Windmill Village with me during this time. How about it, kid?" Garp smiled and touched Shen Yuan's head with tenderness in his eyes. Aegeon was about to speak, but Belmere spoke first. "Lieutenant General Garp, can we allow Shen Yuan to stay with us for a while longer?" The former fell into deep thought, seemingly also thinking about this question. "Grandpa Cap, is there a place for me in Windmill Village?" The former nodded. It was indeed not difficult to find a place to live. "That's no problem. Can't we just settle down in Windmill Village?" Cap's eyes lit up. "Yes, why don't you all go? Just treat it as a trip." Garp patted his chest and assured, "Of course." Belmere was a little hesitant when he heard this, but his heart softened when he saw Nami and Naka's expectant eyes. Just agreed to it. A group of people boarded the warship. The most miserable ones are the Navy soldiers. The weapons that were originally seized within reach were moved to the corner of the village, and now they were moving the weapons to the warships. The Marines all looked unhappy. Also moved away was the barbell that Shen Yuan used for training. It was a gift that Nami and Nojiko saved up money to give him. The sailors' faces turned black. 2 or 3 people lifting a barbell. Walking towards the warship step by step, he was very angry when he saw Shen Yuan's arrogant expression on the way. Shen Yuan said proudly, "I'm telling you. Move them all." The sailors' faces turned black. Shen Yuan stood on the deck. Although his eyes were fixed on the boundless sea, his heart was already filled with turbulent waves. Nami sat on Shen Yuan's neck, imitating Shen Yuan and looking at the sea. Garp sat on a recliner, chewing senbei. Only Nojiko and Melbel stood uncomfortably behind Garp. "It's like Granny Lu entering the Grand View Garden." Shen Yuan fiddled with the system again, checking out the new features that had recently been introduced. Destiny selection function, select the camp you want to join, and tasks will be issued accordingly to obtain rewards. Option 1, Navy. Option 2, Pirate. Option 3, Adventurer. Shen Yuan did not hesitate and immediately chose the identity of Adventurer. Successful selection. Release phase mission, own a ship of your own. This mission? Deliberate? There was a ship right in front of me. I didn't cherish it. If God gave me another chance, I will definitely. Shen Yuan's face turned dark. Garp looked at Shen Yuan, whose face turned red and white, in confusion. What the hell? The second half of the sentence was not said, probably because he was afraid of being embarrassed. Chapter 4, Punch Luffy and Kick Ace. East China Sea. Windmill Village. The hilltop where Dodon's family lived. At this moment, Dodon was sitting helplessly beside Ace and Luffy. There was nothing I could do about the two kids' quarrels. Dodon. When Dodon heard the cry, he was immediately frightened. Dodon, oh my god. Here we go again. He stood up quickly. Looking at Garp, who was slowly walking towards him in the distance, he gave a flattering smile. Mr. Garp, you. Before he could finish his words, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a little kid following Garp. Dodon, look. 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 Here comes another one. Does this old man think this place is a kindergarten? Garp laughed heartily and said slowly. I'll let them meet. He's going to live here permanently from now on. Dodon responded listlessly. There weren't many emotional changes. Garp didn't care and turned around to look at the two little ones. Luffy. Ace. This is Shen Yuan. He's your new accomplice, partner. Ace was thin at this time. She was wearing a half-sleeved shirt with the word power printed on it. Ace smiled. He gave Shen Yuan a meaningful smile. Luffy at this moment is very similar to the adult Luffy. He looks dull and not very smart. Luffy stared at Shen Yuan in front of him blankly without saying a word. Then you two can spend some time together. I'll go back and help Shen Yuan clean up the house. Say it. Garp turned and walked away without another word. Cap just left. The unruly Ace made some unusual moves. He took a step forward. I want to challenge you. Shen Yuan smiled. Clenched his fists. He waved his hand. A battle between the two is about to break out. But Dodon did not stop it. It's nothing more than a fight between children. Whoosh. Shen Yuan took the lead and moved in front of Ace with one hand. Punch out. Oh. The punch immediately hit his abdomen. Ace felt the great power. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of sour water and crashed straight into a big tree. Boom. The big tree was broken by Ace. He spat out a mouthful of blood and struggled to stand up. What? Do you want to fight again? Shen Yuan stood with his hands folded, looking very cold. The former stumbled to his feet. He could hardly hold the water pipe in his hand. Oh. Repeat the old trick. It moved in front of Ace again at high speed. He kicked out suddenly again. Ace reacted instantly and raised the water pipe to block. But it couldn't withstand the power of the explosion. He was kicked away by Shen Yuan again and fell into the bushes. Defeat the plot character Ace, childhood, and level up to LV6. Shen Yuan curled his lips. If Ace is killed, won't old man Garp skin himself alive? Ace couldn't get up this time. The pain continued to erode the body, and the kick just now was like being hit by a shotgun. At this time, a tender fist attacks. Don't bully Ace. Shen Yuan looked at Luffy and smiled faintly. I was busy beating him just now, now I'm going to beat you. This attack was easily blocked by Shen Yuan. He kicked Luffy away with a simple kick. He flew backwards 2 or 3 meters in an instant. Defeat the plot character Luffy, childhood, and level up to LV8. Shen Yuan was excited after being promoted 3 levels in a row. With the remaining skill points, he immediately learned the other 6 navy skills, iron block, moon step, finger gun, and paper drawing. Another point is on mastery of swordsmanship. Completely mastered the 6 styles of the navy. As I felt the instructions for each move appear in my mind, I couldn't help but be amazed. Dodon was stunned by what was happening before his eyes. I guess this kid's kung fu isn't good enough for him to last more than 2 moves. But if I don't go up, I'll be beaten if Garp finds out. With my mind racing. He has already made up his mind. Holding a stick in hand, he rushed towards Shen Yuan. At least you have to do something to show your appreciation. Shen Yuan Jirhui dodged Dodon's attack. Lift your hands sideways. A finger gun was used. The huge force penetrated Dodon's chest. Dodon was so surprised that the cigarette in his mouth fell to the ground. Feeling the pain spreading throughout my body, I couldn't help but half kneel down. Defeat the plot character Dodon and level up to LV9. Upgrading again, this time Shen Yuan focused on agility. Shen Yuan looked coldly at the three people lying on the ground in front of him, and looked at the other bandits with unfriendly eyes. What? Do you guys still want to fight? The other bandits were stunned. They wanted to take revenge but they didn't dare to step forward. They all looked extremely nervous. Shen Yuan sighed and his attitude changed 180 degrees. Pull up Dodden who was lying on the ground. He turned around and pulled Ace and Luffy up. He began to explain to everyone. The old man told me about you. He said you were naughty and asked me to discipline you. The blood at the corner of Ace's mouth had not yet dried. Although there was some anger in his eyes when he looked at Shen Yuan, there was more helplessness. Luffy was not seriously injured. She hugged Shen Yuan's thigh heartlessly and began to ask. Brother Shen Yuan, can you teach me that ability to move quickly? It's so cool. Dodden calmed down a lot and stared blankly at the scene in front of him. Only then did I realize that this was actually Garp's work. Okay, but the training is very hard. Shen Yuan does know how to practice the 6 Navy styles. After learning the 6 Navy styles, the training method seemed to be imprinted in Shen Yuan's mind. Okay, I'm not afraid of hardship. At this time, Ace also spoke. Shen Yuan, if you defeat me, I will recognize you as my big brother. I also want to practice with you, and I also want to learn your fast-moving skill. Shen Yuan naturally would not refuse. Ace. Be lucky. It's unfortunate too. If possible, Shen Yuan hopes that Ace can live well. After all, this is the wish of all living beings. Garp walked slowly to the top of the mountain and was stunned when he saw Ace and Dodden in front of him with pale faces. Dodden told Garp what had just happened. Garp was stunned for more than 10 seconds. Only then did I react. He started laughing heartily. Kid, have you mastered the 6 styles of the Navy? Cap was a little suspicious. Although I told Shen Yuan about the practice methods of the 6 Navy styles, I didn't expect that I would be able to master it so quickly. Shen Yuan nodded indifferently. Well, you are really Grandpa's great-grandson. It seems that you are qualified to learn Haki. I will teach you Haki in the next month. Don't be lazy. Shen Yuan's originally cold eyes turned fiery. His eyes glowed slightly. The way he looked at Garp at this moment was like looking at a fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. Garp got goosebumps when he was stared at. He took out a bag of senbei and started eating without any hesitation. Kid, show me the Navy 6 styles. Shen Yuan walked to a tree, took a step forward, stretched out his finger and pointed it at the tree. Point gun. The power from the fingertips instantly penetrated the tree, leaving a big hole in it. This is not over yet. Shen Yuan flew in the air with the moon step and kicked out with a storm kick. The violent shock wave split the tree, and the tree was cut in half. Then Shen Yuan used shave to flash back in front of Garp. The more Garp looked at it, the more satisfied he was. He thought he would definitely become a Navy admiral. You 3, gather at the nearby forest tomorrow. I will personally teach you how to do physical exercises. After saying that, Garp walked down the mountain picking his nose, with Shen Yuan following closely behind. Brother, where are you going? Luffy asked in confusion. Go home. Is it okay not to reply? If I don't reply, will you support me? Luffy, I can't afford it. Chapter 5, Practical Training, Understanding Domineering. The next morning. The first ray of sunlight shines into the house. Shen Yuan slowly opened his eyes. What a sunny day. The corners of his mouth curved slightly. Looking at Nami who was sleeping soundly in his arms, he gently covered her with the quilt. He tiptoed out of the room, tidied his appearance a little, and went out of the house to start exercising. As soon as Mère walked out of the room and headed for the orange orchard, he saw Shen Yuan exercising on the way. Xiao Shen Yuan, are you exercising again? He walked to Shen Yuan with a smile and handed him a lunch box from his backpack. That's so nice, sis. Don't work too hard. Don't work too hard. Mère felt warm in his heart and skipped away. Shen Yuan finished his daily practice tasks and was overjoyed when he saw the system's attributes increasing. He put on his clothes and slowly walked up the hill. At the same time, Dodden family. Luffy has already woken up. At this moment, I am standing on the top of the mountain and looking down, hoping to see a familiar figure. Shen Yuan walked up to the top of the mountain step by step and gradually appeared in Luffy's eyes. Brother Shen Yuan, you got up so early. The former greeted Luffy enthusiastically after seeing him. "Hi! I missed you so much I came to see you." He seemed like a completely different person from the cold and frosty Shen Yuan of yesterday. "Come with me." Luffy heard this. He instantly became enthusiastic and followed Shen Yuan into the forest. "First, to train yourself, you must first train your concentration." After saying that, Shen Yuan began to teach Luffy how to do horse stance. Horse stance is a basic skill. This is also the training method Shen Yuan often uses. Luffy was doing horse stance in pain. Also training with him was Shen Yuan, who was doing a horse stance. After training for a whole morning, when the trees in the distance rustled slightly, Shen Yuan suddenly woke up and looked towards the bushes with a wary look on his face. The trees swayed. Cap's head popped out. Shen Yuan was stunned, a speechless expression appeared on his face. "Brother Shen Yuan, your cooking skills are really good." Luffy ate barbecue heartlessly. Shen Yuan stared at Garp in silence, and the venison in his hand no longer tasted delicious. When Garp saw this, he was about to say something. Suddenly, I felt tears flowing from the corner of Ace's mouth. After a while, the two of them also joined the barbecue army. Each and every one of them looks like a refugee fleeing famine, as if they have never seen food before. In a moment, after having a meal, several people stood in front of Garp, and Garp stared at them seriously. "Now let's start today's practice. The first lesson of this practice is to survive in this dangerous jungle for a day. Also, Shen Yuan, come with me." After that, the whole place was silent. Ace showed a puzzled look, and even Luffy, who had a slow brain, frowned rarely. "Go quickly." Garp punched each of the two little guys, and the two little guys flew out instantly. He breathed a sigh of relief, and his gaze towards Shen Yuan gradually became intriguing. "Come with me." A few minutes later, Shen Yuan followed Garp onto the warship. As they walked, Cap gave them some thoughtful scientific advice. Armament haki is a method of attack that increases the hardness and strength of the body. This energy can be used to attack natural devil fruit users. Shen Yuan listened quietly without saying a word. Everyone has a different way of cultivating domineering aura. The way I cultivate my domineering aura is to frequently use it to increase my own strength, attack enemies or objects, and increase my own strength. He knew Capuchin Yuan very well. He was the man who leveled 8 mountains in order to cultivate his domineering aura. Garp continued, "Your job today is to try to eliminate the pirates you see. I won't take action unless it's absolutely necessary." "I understand, teacher." Garp was stunned, and was very confused about the title of teacher. "Sail. Set sail." At Garp's command, the warship set sail and slowly sailed on the sea. Everyone on the warship looked at Shen Yuan, and they were all very curious about this disciple of Garp. "After all, we helped each other move house once." Someone immediately couldn't help it. "Little brother, who is your grandfather?" Shen Yuan's face darkened. "Guess." The Navy soldier slapped his thigh in regret. "That." Everyone was chatting casually. Just like that, we gradually sailed towards the dangerous sea. I do not know how long it has been. In the distance, a pirate ship is approaching. It is rushing towards our ship at this moment. Come and live. Shen Yuan jumped into the air and kicked out towards the pirate ship. The violent shock wave cut a gap in the deck. The surging sea water seeped out immediately. The crew on the pirate ship were suddenly shocked. "Someone's attacking! Someone's attacking!" Shen Yuan moved quickly on the deck using the moon step, clenched his fist and smashed it on the head of a pirate. "Oh!" The huge force caused the pirate to lose consciousness instantly and fall on the deck. Seeing this scene, several pirates with weapons in their hands rushed over with unfriendly eyes. The predicted attack of the paper painting worked, and he dodged the attack of the lame. He grabbed one of the pirates by the collar with one hand. The other hand swung like a heavy artillery and hit another pirate. Another sound was heard, and Shen Yuan led the pirate and hit the mast with all his strength, breaking it directly. "Pick up the mast at random. Strike again at the pirates who are ready to make a move." Boom boom boom. A series of noises came out continuously. At this time, Garp was holding a telescope and staring at the battlefield in the distance, which made Garp marvel at it. "Vice Admiral Garp, is everything okay?" Bogart said with some concern. Garp waved his hand nonchalantly. At this time, Shen Yuan has entered the state, the mast in his hand is like the sickle of the god of death. It's like harvesting crop after crop of corn stalks. Has that been enough? The pirate captain kicked open the door of the captain's room, and pointed a long sword with a cold glow in his hand at Shen Yuan. Shen Yuan threw away the mast and stretched his arms and legs. Finally, an interesting guy has arrived. Without waiting for the captain to finish speaking, Shen Yuan rushed out. With the help of Moonstep and Shave, the speed is amazing. A punch suddenly flew towards his chin. The captain was startled. The long sword swung out, and the sharp blade cut Shen Yuan's chest. Pfft! A handful of blood flowed out instantly. But Shen Yuan threw another punch regardless. You're crazy! You're crazy! The captain panicked. He doesn't want his life? This life-for-life fighting style puts him under a lot of pressure. While hesitating, he didn't even hold the long sword, and was kicked away by Shen Yuan. Shen Yuan launched another attack. He stretched out his finger and pointed it at the captain's chest. Point gun! The huge force penetrated his chest, and the captain couldn't help but vomit blood. This was not the end. Shen Yuan grabbed the other's neck and smashed the wall of the captain's room. I don't know when my right hand has a layer of faint black light. Shen Yuan didn't notice it and suddenly blasted out with his right hand. Armament hacky! Cap exclaimed, looking through the telescope. What is unbelievable is that Shen Yuan actually hit the enemy's head so hard that it became dented. He fell straight to the ground with a lifeless face. Shen Yuan did not dare to be careless and raised the pirate captain's long sword. Finish off the pirates who are wailing on the ground one by one. So far, the pirate group that was about to go out to sea was completely destroyed and all fell under Shen Yuan's iron fist. Chapter 6. Red Hair Shanks. Well done. Shen Yuan returned to the deck. Garp patted his shoulder with a smile on his face, a look of relief on his face. Mr. Bogart, this knife looks different. Could you please take a look at it for me? Bogart took the knife and began to examine it carefully. Cap happily bandaged Shen Yuan's wound, his eyes full of joy. Brother, you are so awesome. The Marines are excited. The battle just now was simple, brutal, yet shocking. This kind of life and death fighting style is really satisfying. Even these Marines can't hold back and wish they could take on the entire pirate group alone. This one. Bogart seemed to want to say something but stopped himself, but finally he sighed heavily. This knife may be a good and sharp knife. If you like it, keep it for yourself. Bogart looked the knife up and down, thought for a moment, and spoke again. The shape of this knife is very strange. It doesn't look like a knife produced in that place at all. Therefore, it is really difficult to determine its origin. Shen Yuan nodded slightly, then turned around. He shouted loudly to the Marines who were preparing to clean up the battlefield. Don't forget my scabbard. Before he finished speaking, the Marines who were cleaning the battlefield had already understood what he meant. They all made an okay gesture and rushed to the battlefield like a gust of wind. Shen Yuan stared at the sharp knife in his hand and fell into deep thought. A domineering name comes to mind. I named this sword Tunshan, which means I have the ambition to swallow up mountains and rivers. Hearing this, Bogart revealed a hint of admiration that was hard to detect. After a moment, a naval soldier respectfully presented the scabbard. Shen Yuan put the knife back into the sheath with a swift movement, a fierce look on his face. The group continued to move forward, and all the small pirate groups they encountered were easily defeated by Shen Yuan without causing any ripples. However, an accident broke the peace. A pirate ship was approaching slowly in the distance, and Garp looked solemn, which was rare. He stood up and stared into the distance. It's the Red Force. Bogart said with a heavy face. Hey, Vice Admiral Garp, how are you? Shanks was standing at the bow, and when his loud voice came, Garp couldn't help but frown. Is this little brother a new recruit in the Navy? Shanks said with a pleasant face. Shanks, why are you still wandering around the East China Sea? The two ships approached each other, and Shanks boarded the warship. In his early years, his domineering aura had not yet reached the level of defying the heavens, it only gave off a sense of oppression. At this moment, Shen Yuan's eyes, staring at the red-haired girl, suddenly became wrong. His hair was red like a flame, and there were faint scars on his left eye. He had a western sword slung across his waist, and his eyes were as sharp as an eagle, yet as gentle as water. Shen Yuan's eyes gradually became hot, like a burning flame, staring at the red-haired man. It's like looking at a tempting tall leek. At this time, the knife in his hand also responded, with a faint black light flashing, and it was extremely active. This scene made the red-haired man stunned, and he cursed in his heart, "I'm not a gay." The red-haired man coughed twice without making any expression, then turned to Garp and asked, "Vice Admiral Garp, how have you been lately?" Garp shook his hands angrily, not bothering to pay attention to the red-haired man. "My dear, your gaze is really strange." The red-haired man asked Shen Yuan with a puzzled look on his face. "Shanks, you are the most famous pirate in this sea. Do you want to fight me?" Shanks smiled and said, "Some other time." Shen Yuan knew that he was no match for the other four, but he still wanted to challenge the future four emperors. After all, the rewards for these two stages are different. There was silence. Garp said slowly, "What are you doing here?" The red-haired man thought for a moment, then said calmly, "Vice Admiral Garp, Luffy is very likely the child of destiny." Garp was extremely angry when he heard this, and he raised his iron fist and punched the red-haired man in the face. The red-haired man raised his sword to block, and the huge force made the surrounding marines retreat again and again. "Watch your behavior, you bastard redhead." The red-haired man gradually lost his strength and swung his sword to attack the other marines. Garp could only flash back to the marine and smash the sword energy with one punch. Red Hair temporarily repelled Garp, then quickly withdrew and retreated back to the Redfirth. "Old man, neither you nor I can control Luffy's fate. He is born to break shackles." After saying this, the Red Fours gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. Redhead stood on the bow, still smiling and waving goodbye to Garp. Upon hearing this, Garp's originally agitated mood instantly became unusually calm, and he began to ponder the meaning of this sentence. "Master, fate is meant to be broken. No one can control fate, not even the highest authority, not even God." Garp nodded heavily. These words were very meaningful. "Okay. Set sail." Garp returned to normal, took out a bag of senbei from somewhere and started eating. After a busy day, the group returned to Windmill Village again. At dusk, Shen Yuan dragged his tired body back home. Mère changed the bandage for him attentively, her face full of concern. Nami was also wiping Shen Yuan's body carefully. Shen Yuan checked his own attributes and opened the system. Name, Shen Yuan. Age, 12 years old. Identity, Adventurer. Skills, Navy 6 Styles, LV1, Swordsmanship Mastery, LV1, Physical Enhancement, LV2, Agility Enhancement, LV1. Physique, 25.6/100. Agility, 13.2/100. Speed, 10.8/100. Strength, 26.6/100. Level, 18. Remaining skill points, 8. Level 20 is the upper limit of the stage, and the upper limit will be increased after completing specific tasks. He nodded secretly. It seems that obtaining the 4 attribute values through actual combat is faster than through training. He added all 8 skill points to physical strengthening and took another look at the skills that could not be used. You need to be at level 21 to learn Haki. What the hell? Shen Yuan's face was as gloomy as water. The rest of the open ones were some life skills, which were generally very useless, and he didn't bother to click on them. Suddenly, his eyes noticed a skill that suddenly appeared, and he suddenly clicked on an armament color skill plate. Armament Haki? Is this something I learned from the battle just now? Shen Yuan stretched out his fist. Under Belmer's astonished gaze, a layer of black light covered its fist, flashing a dazzling light. Is this armament Haki? Belmer finished changing the dressing and looked at the black fist in amazement. Shen Yuan faded away his armament Haki, and the 3 colors of Haki changed with the user. For example, Katakuri's observation Haki can predict the short future, Jesus Bullet and Usopp and others can better assist in aiming, and so on. Garp's armament Haki greatly improves his striking ability, while the swordsman's hardened weapons, etc. The attack strength brought by the armament color is unprecedented. This made Shen Yuan more comfortable with the subsequent battles. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. Now Shen Yuan even felt that he could fight all night long. Of course, it was a night of fierce battles with pirates. Shen Yuan touched the heads of little Nami and Nakago. He smiled, held Nami and Nojiko's hands, walked into the study, and began to study the mysteries of the sea chart with the 2 girls. During this period, Nami was extremely interested in nautical charts, and so was Shen Yuan. After all, when sailing on the sea, it always helps to have more skills. Brother! Brother! Luffy ran over, looked at the house where Shen Yuan lived anxiously and shouted anxiously. Shen Yuan heard Luffy's call and walked out of the study. He saw Ace and Luffy standing at the door, looking at Shen Yuan with anticipation. Okay, let's go to the backyard. Chapter 7. Going to sea. In the 1509th year of the Haiwan calendar, Shen Yuan's training with Cap ended. During this period, he followed Garp to patrol the surrounding sea areas, and after the inspection, he returned to Windmill Village to strengthen his body. Therefore, the frequency of pirates appearing in the surrounding waters became lower and lower, until finally there were no pirates at all. Shen Yuan's level also reached the upper limit, and the first stage of the mission was unlocked. Same year, Shanks also contacted Luffy. At that time, Shen Yuan and Garp had already sailed and did not pay attention to what was happening here. Now Cap comes back less and less frequently, and in the end he doesn't even come back once a year. Shen Yuan continued to practice and broke the shackles of level. All the accumulated experience points poured into the level, and he rose 5 levels in a row, reaching level 25. Shen Yuan added a little bit of observation haki, and the rest of the points were added to armament haki. Haiwan calendar year 1510. Shen Yuan is 14 years old. As the plot develops, Sabo also openly joined the team of the 3 little ones, became brothers with Shen Yuan, Ace, and Luffy, and now continues to practice with Shen Yuan. Same year, Sabo was attacked while out at sea and was rescued by the revolutionary dragon. Shen Yuan did not forcibly interfere with the development of other people's plots, but let nature take its course and saved some people who should not have died, that's all. This year, Shen Yuan made a major decision. Go to sea. This was exactly 2 years after Shen Yuan became a grandson. Shen Yuan has a strong face, black hair, and wears a black robe. A long sword was across his waist, and a scar on his chest complemented his muscular physique. There is an air of danger all the time. It is worth mentioning that Garp also took time out of his busy schedule to see Shen Yuan off. A group of villagers were standing at the entrance of the village, all watching Shen Yuan enthusiastically as he slowly boarded the boat. Ace stood at the port, his face solemn. Brother Shen Yuan, in what capacity are you going out to sea? Shen Yuan was stunned for a moment, then smiled faintly. Adventurer. Adventurer. Ace and Luffy were both stunned. Garp disagrees, he says he can be anything other than a pirate. He doesn't want his grandson and apprentice to become a pirate. Garp shouted loudly and powerfully, Kid, never abandon the justice in your heart no matter where you go. Shen Yuan waved his hand, which was considered as his agreement. Luffy also shouted excitedly, Brother, when I become stronger, we will meet on the sea. Shen Yuan turned his back to the crowd, waved lightly, stepped onto the boat that the 4 brothers had built together, and gradually disappeared as everyone watched. It is worth mentioning that Belmel and the other 2 had already been sent back to Kokozia village by Garp. Therefore, Shen Yuan's first stop was Kokozia village, where he went to visit 3 people whom he hadn't seen for a long time. Complete the mission. Own a ship of your own. Get reward, Devil Fruit Illustration 1. Release mission, explore this world. Randomly trigger rewards. What the hell? Devil Fruit Illustrated Book. As Shen Yuan thought about it, a booklet appeared in his hand. The ancient pages revealed mystery, showing the difference of this book. Shen Yuan flipped through the pages and exclaimed in amazement. This is a Devil Fruit Illustrated book, damn. The sea was calm, without any disturbance. Due to Shen Yuan's crazy crackdown on pirates in recent years, the Navy gradually became familiar with this name. Naval Headquarters, Marine Vander. Shen Yuan, 14 years old, trained with Garp 2 years ago, but didn't join the Navy? I actually became an adventurer. Garp, is this what you did? Zhang Guo looked at Garp with a gloomy face, pressed the identity information hard on the table, and stared at Garp fiercely. Ha 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 ha, didn't that kid become a pirate? He can be considered my last disciple. Ha ha. Ha ha you. Zhang Guo was extremely angry, but there was nothing he could do. Such a good seedling, but Garp didn't even take him by force. Garp, where do you think that kid will go? Sengoku suddenly asked with a heavy face. Garp hesitated for a moment, then shook his head slightly. He said in a deep voice, it could be the Grand Line, or it could be the East China Sea. There will always be something worth his nostalgia. Well, just hope they don't cause any trouble. Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief, as long as they weren't some extremely evil pirate. Shen Yuan had no idea at this time that he had been remembered by the old guy Zhangguo. I arrived at the Kokaxia village. Unexpectedly, as soon as I arrived at the Kokaxia village, my system started to move. Arrived at Kokozia village. Get reward, skill points 5. Shen Yuan added armament haki without hesitation, and the level of armament haki reached level 10. It reached the level of intermediate armament haki. Hey! Little Shen Yuan is back. A kind old lady came over with a smile. Shen Yuan smiled and nodded. At this time, Shen Yuan had a Tian swallowing sword on his waist, which he had not used in recent years. At least you should be able to cover your weapon with armament color before using it, so that you can avoid any damage. He is 1.8 meters tall, with a resolute face. Dressed in a black robe, he exudes explosive power. Shen Yuan exchanged a few words with the villagers and then walked towards the place where his dream began. Brother Shen Yuan! Brother Shen Yuan is back! Nami shouted happily. At this time, Nami has grown into a graceful little girl. Although no Kijao was a little dark, her delicate facial features proved that she had an extraordinary appearance. Brother Shen Yuan! Nyo Kijao walked into the house holding a basket of oranges, and her eyes began to sparkle as she looked at the tall and handsome Shen Yuan. Little Shen Yuan! A hearty shout came from a distance, and Shen Yuan knew without looking back that it was Belmere's voice. Sister, I went out to sea and came back to see you this time. Belmere nodded. Shen Yuan's stage is not in Kokozia village. Not even the East China Sea. His stage is the Grand Route, the New World, and the entire world. The family had a delicious meal. Period. Shen Yuan kept telling stories about his travels in the East China Sea over the past few years. The thrilling battles and some beautiful and boundless islands greatly aroused Nami's curiosity. Brother Shen Yuan, can you take me out to sea? Nami asked cautiously. Although Belmere also yearns for it, he has lost his original passion. Nami, the place I'm going to is very dangerous, so I'm sorry, I can't take you with me. I don't want my family to be implicated if something happens to me. Nami nodded with a sense of loss. She really wanted to go out to sea. But she also knew that if she followed Shen Yuan she would encounter powerful opponents, and this was also for her own good. After dinner, Shen Yuan set sail again with the farewell of the villagers. Well, the next stop is to go to Shield's town to take a look, check in and leave. I will definitely not get involved in Luffy's affairs. The sail was set, Shen Yuan continued to practice, while looking at the sea in the distance. The ship slowly sailed towards the town of Shells, and Shen Yuan also had the opportunity to purchase some supplies. In the evening, the ship docked and Shen Yuan got off. Arrived at Shield's town. Reward skill points 5. Shen Yuan still allocated his skill points to armament haki. I am still level 21. What happened? There was no fluctuation in the level, and Shen Yuan couldn't help but feel a little confused. Can you only level up by killing your opponents? Chapter 8. The Night Thief. After arriving in the town of Shields, Shen Yuan randomly found a tavern to sit down. Madam, give me a glass of rum. He asked the proprietress for a glass of wine and prepared to take a break and look around. There aren't many supplies left on the ship, right? Let's grab some. While Shen Yuan was drinking, he always listened to the conversations of people around him, intentionally or unintentionally. Things like naval tyranny and Roger's voyage. Shen Yuan didn't know how many times he had heard such words. Now he just wants to become stronger, keep getting stronger, and stand at the top of this world. The goddess of luck has come to my house now. Is it time to change the owner of the highest power? He drank the wine in the glass and walked out of the pub. At this time, Shen Yuan had already arrived at the shop in the town. After purchasing a large amount of supplies, there was not much money left for the voyage. If I rob a group of Navy soldiers, will I be wanted? Shen Yuan shook his head. Anyway, the person you are looking for is a thief who walks at night. What does this have to do with me, adventurer Shen Yuan? At this time, son of Captain Monka, Bellemere, who had a middle-parted hairstyle, entered the store with a very arrogant expression. He frowned as he looked at Shen Yuan with his backpack, and couldn't help but whispered. You bumped into me, apologize. Shen Yuan didn't act pretentiously and apologized right away, I'm sorry. Is that it? Bellemere took out a pistol, pointed it at Shen Yuan and was ready to shoot without any hesitation. Shen Yuan frowned. This kid is still a child and he is so arrogant. He put down his backpack and punched Bellamy Bear in the face. Boom! The punch was as fierce as a tiger, and the tremendous power poured into his face. It was blown away by the huge force and smashed the wall of the store. The surrounding navy were all stunned. Defeat the plot character Bellamy and increase your level by 22 levels. Shen Yuan was very satisfied with the upgrade and the skill points that came with it. Shen Yuan picked up his backpack again. A rustling sound was heard. It was unknown whether Bellamy was dead or alive, so the Marines could only help Bellamy up. It's really troublesome, Shen Yuan said as he walked to the shore. After stuffing a whole bag of supplies onto the boat, he noticed the faint sound of a ship sailing in the distance, and couldn't help but become interested. Brothers, we... Before the leader could finish his words, a violent shock wave suddenly hit and shattered the ship in an instant. Lan Jiao. It's Lan Jiao. The leader was wearing a navy uniform, had a small mustache, and had shifty eyes. It was hard to describe him. Shen Yuan laughed loudly, moved in front of the man with moon steps, and kicked out with another storm kick. Whoosh! The slash from Lan Jiao cut the mast straight off. While everyone on the boat was stunned, Shen Yuan rushed forward and grabbed the neck of one of the leading Marines. At this time, his palm was already covered with ink black armed color domineering. I'm Colonel Mouse, I'm a colonel in the Navy. You are challenging the dignity of the Navy by doing this. Shen Yuan applied a little force with his palm, and then with a click sound, the Mouse Colonel's neck was instantly broken. Kill the plot character rat and increase your level to level 25. The other Navy men were trembling and didn't dare to look at Shen Yuan. Shen Yuan demonstrated the 6 Navy moves, which proved some problems. Everyone inside knows clearly what our colonel has done. Either the matter is exposed and they have to clean up the mess. Or maybe it's a naval traitor who is looting his own kind. Move out all the supplies on your ship. The voice just fell. The sailors all took action, and boxes of treasure and even food were moved to the deck. Put it on my ship. I'll settle the score with the Navy captain at this base. The sailors didn't dare to answer and just carried the supplies obediently. Looking at the Navy moving all the supplies onto their ship, he breathed a sigh of relief and waved his hand. You can go. Everyone was as if pardoned, they hoisted the sails, and disappeared from Shen Yuan's sight almost instantly. Just a little skill. You can use the top-level armed color. He suppressed the throbbing in his heart and walked towards the naval base step by step under the cover of night. Entering the naval base. At this time, the interior of the stronghold was brightly lit. In the office, Navy Captain Monka was sitting on the stage, thinking about his subordinate's report with a gloomy face. Monka was very angry because his son was knocked unconscious by one blow and the attacker disappeared. Search the surrounding area extensively. We will not stop until we find this person. Just as Monka was thinking after giving the order, a dark figure kicked the window and broke it. The person who came was wearing a black mask and holding a long sword covered in armed colors in his hand. He was filled with a murderous aura. You are the one who attacked my son. Monka put on the navy cloak tremblingly, and held the huge axe in front of him, staring at the mysterious man in front of him. Shen Yuan rushed over quickly, swung out a sword, and roared as he chopped Monka's axe into 2 pieces. Then he stepped on Monka's chest with his left foot. He used this force to fly into the air, and then he suddenly exerted force with his right foot and kicked Monka hard on the chin. Oh! A loud crash was heard from Monka's office, and the surrounding navy began to gather in large numbers, rushing towards Monka's office. Defeat the plot character Monka and increase your level to level 26. After receiving the reward, Shen Yuan stopped procrastinating, broke the window, and disappeared into the night with moon steps. When the Navy soldiers arrived, I saw Monka lying in the office, without any sound, as if he was dead. But his rising and falling chest proved that he was still alive. This made the soldiers breathe a sigh of relief, and their subordinates began to clean up the mess, hurriedly repairing the broken battlefield. Report. A Navy soldier hurried over and was stunned when he saw the mess. Monka supported himself with his hands and sat up with difficulty, his eyes dull. It took him 5 minutes to come to his senses. Report to the colonel, we found the body of Colonel Rat on the coast of Shields Town. Monka's eyes narrowed. Crack. Why do all the bad things happen to me today? Monka is angry. Don't let anyone know what happened today. Help me to go and take a look. With the help of the Navy soldiers, Monka slowly walked towards the shore. Coincidentally, Shen Yuan escaped from the town of Shields in a small boat. Full. Shen Yuan excitedly put all 5 skill points into armament haki. The moment the skill is maxed out, Shen Yuan felt the benefit of maxing out his armament haki, and tremendous power filled his body. This power had nowhere to be released, making Shen Yuan extremely uncomfortable. His fist was covered with black armament haki. There were also wisps of black mist surrounding the fist. Shen Yuan suddenly punched towards the sea. Suddenly, a small spiral splash appeared from the bottom of the sea, until the sea surface suddenly exploded, and the splashes all over the sky brought up several terrified sea kings. Shen Yuan grabbed one, pulled out the tianyan from his waist, dismembered the sea king, and started cooking. Shen Yuan felt comfortable, but Monka felt uncomfortable. Looking at the rat lying on the shore, its death was extremely cruel, its throat was crushed, its neck was broken, and there was even a look of horror on its face. Monka gasped. This death was enough to give him nightmares for 3 days and 3 nights. Clean up the battlefield and report the situation to the Navy headquarters. The Marine behind him was stunned. Colonel Monka, didn't you say that the news must not be leaked? Monka's face darkened, and he said speechlessly, the rat is dead, what are you doing in the sea area he was in charge of? After saying that, Monka felt a pain in his chest again, knelt on the ground and vomited blood again. Report to Colonel Monka, our vault has been looted. Upon hearing this, Monka vomited another mouthful of blood. Chapter 9, Evil Little Pirate. I will. A few days later, Shen Yuan lay on a recliner, leisurely reading the newspaper. There have been a lot of big things happening recently, haven't there? In the year 1510 of the Sea Circle calendar, Kaido and Mariah fought fiercely. Mariah was defeated and all his men were killed and the whole army was annihilated. Moonlight Mariah is missing. Looking at the information in the newspaper, I suddenly thought of the missing Sabo. I don't know what happened to that kid Sabo. Shen Yuan sighed, glanced at the small island gradually emerging in the distance, and smiled slightly. Get off the boat and step onto the land of Orange Town, receive the reward, and continue sailing on the boat. Arrived in Orange Town. Obtain skill points 5. Shen Yuan continued to read the newspaper and began to think carefully. In the year 1510 of the Haiwan calendar, Gina would fall down the stairs and die. Should he intervene? Wouldn't it be a cowardly death to fall down the stairs and die? Anyway, if I fall to my death, I will not let Oda go even if I turn into a ghost. After thinking about it, Shen Yuan decided to check out all these islands and then go to Ishin Dojo to hone his swordsmanship. The benefits brought by mechanically maxing out sword skills are truly unparalleled. Shen Yuan's wish is to train Tunshin into a black sword that is not inferior to the supreme sword. This is the ultimate dream of every swordsman. I put all my skill points into swordsmanship, and the 6th level of mastery in swordsmanship is considered to be the threshold of a swordsman. There was really nothing good to go to in Orange Town, and Bucky hadn't arrived yet. Shen Yuan didn't know where to hang out at the moment, and he didn't want to waste time. Naval Headquarters, Marine Vander. What? Colonel Rat died. Zhang Guo's old face turned red and white at this time, and he looked very angry about Shen Yuan killing the Navy. Okay, I got it. Send another colonel to take over. Zhang Guo had a gloomy face. It was because of what Roger said before his death that the hated Age of Discovery came about. Damn Roger, damn Roger. Garp ate senbei with an innocent look on his face, and also read a newspaper with relish, pointing and talking as he ate. Garp. Are you really not going to consider being promoted to general of the headquarters? Garp waved his hand as a reply. Zhang Guo sighed lightly and began to deal with his busy official duties. Reporting to Marshal Zhang Guo, a marine reported that someone saw the face of the colonel who attacked the rat. Let him in. A marine staggered in and looked at the admiral in front of him nervously. Report to Marshal Zhang Guo. What's wrong? Tell me. The marines were already very nervous, and they became even more frightened when they saw the marshal's face fall in front of them. Zhang Guo seemed to realize his own gaffe, relaxed his attitude, and waved his hand. Seeing that the Warring States period has eased a lot. The marine told him everything that happened in Shields Town like pouring beans. At this moment, the more Sengoku listened, the darker his face became, and he looked at Garp beside him with anger. Okay, you go down now. The marines were relieved. He left the marshal's office and finally breathed a sigh of relief. After the marine walked out of the office, Zhang Guo finally found out Shen Yuan's identity information. Garp, is he your good grandson? Garp was slightly stunned. What? See for yourself. He took Zhang Guo's identity information and began to read it. Let's stop here. You know what rats are like. Garp didn't care, or even didn't care. Garp, this is the last time. Zhang Guo was extremely angry, but for Garp's sake, he did not issue a wanted notice for Shen Yuan this time. The next day, Shen Yuan arrived at the new island, and the moment he stepped on the land, his reward arrived in his account. Arrived at Ziluobia village. Obtain bonus skill points 5. Shen Yuan has reached the 11th level in swordsmanship and is now a true swordsman. As he walked into the island, Shen Yuan did not see the plot character Usopp, which made him feel extremely confused. Hello. I am. You're the brat with 8,000 men under your command, right? Your dad is Jesus Bulletin, the dirty pirate, right? Usopp was choked by these words and didn't know what to say. Evil little pirate, I will learn about you myself. The majestic momentum suddenly erupted, causing the little ghosts to tremble with fear and sweat all over. An extremely fast fist suddenly hit Usopp. Seeing the fist getting closer, Usopp was so scared that he closed his eyes. Be prepared to face the coming of death at any time. But after a few seconds, the attack still didn't come. Usopp tentatively opened his eyes and looked at Shen Yuan, who had already put away his fist. I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. You evil little pirate, you are not worthy of being put to death by my own hands. Sure enough, intimidating with imposing manner is also a form of defeat. Defeat the plot character Usopp and increase your level to level 27. Usopp was so frightened that he stood there in a daze, not daring to move. You are lucky today. Shen Yuan stopped bothering Usopp and turned to go straight to Princess Kaya's villa. Usopp finally recovered and couldn't help but breathe heavily. Who? The momentum just now. Different from pirates, different from the navy. In short, he is neither a good person nor a bad person, just a very weird person. Usopp staggered to his feet, looking at Shen Yuan, who had already walked away, and just stood there. At this time, Shen Yuan. He arrived at the door of Kaya Villa, and was greeted by Melly, the housekeeper who looked like Pleasant Goat. Please ask Crabadel to come over. I have something to ask him. Excuse me, who are you? Melly asked suspiciously. I'm his friend. Please call Crabate out. Melly pondered for a moment, then turned and walked into the villa. Who's looking for me? Chloe came out pushing up her glasses, wearing a black dress and a brooch of a hard-to-describe shape. You are. CLO narrowed his eyes and looked at the mysterious boy in front of him. Excuse me, Mr. Crow. CLO was shocked and started to panic. Has my story been exposed? Impossible. After careful consideration, he followed Shen Yuan down the mountain. What are you doing? Shen Yuan threw a punch without saying anything, smashing CLO's glasses into pieces. CLO held up his glasses without lenses and looked at Shen Yuan with a gloomy face. Crow, I know everything you did. CLO was shocked again. Don't even think about leaving today. After saying this, CLO clapped his hands. 3 figures slowly emerged from the hillside in the distance, surrounding Shen Yuan from all sides and threatening him. I don't know who you are, but why does this guy look so decent? He wears heart-shaped glasses. Fuck, let me finish. Chloe spoke again, you will die here today. After all, dead people will not. These 2 brothers are fat and thin fairy boys, one tall and one short, one fat and one thin. They look like the boys who bring wealth. Today is a great harvest. CLO's face darkened, and he wanted to say something. I was about to speak. He was shocked to see Shen Yuan suddenly jump up. He pulled out the heaven-swallowing sword and slashed it directly at the eldest of the cat brothers. A huge force penetrated the cat man's chest. The sudden attack caught everyone off guard. By the time the others reacted, the cat man brother was already silent. Great one at woe. Look at me. This time it was Shen Yuan's turn to be speechless. He raised his foot and kicked out at Zhang Jiao. Zhang Jiao had no time to dodge and was hit straight on. The powerful blow left a hideous wound on Zhang Jiao's chest, and he couldn't help but vomit a large mouthful of blood. Vomit. He threw another punch, hitting the cat man's head hard. The same power, the same way of attack, the same way of death. The head suddenly exploded, blood mist spread outward, and the entire valley was filled with the smell of blood. Klo stood there stupidly, his long claws already extended. Spoon. Before Klo could finish casting the spell, Shen Yuan's attack had already arrived. Ito Ryu. I. As he finished speaking, Klo fell to his knees, his life in danger. Shen Yuan raised Tunshan and slashed with the knife again. With one blow, he cut off Zhang Jiao's neck. Sheath the knife. Shen Yuan turned around and left gracefully. Chapter 10. The Town of Beginning and End. Kill the Cat Brothers and Zhang Jiao in the plot mission, defeat CLO and level up to level 31. Shen Yuan invested all his remaining balance into swordsmanship proficiency. The 16th level swordsmanship made him feel at ease. Restraining Tunshan's violent power, he resolutely sailed towards the last stop of the journey to the East China Sea. Rogue Town. Donghai, Rogue Town. The town where the relationship begins and ends. Because the pirate king Roger was executed in this town, this area has also become a gathering place for a large number of pirates. Tashiji, how many pirates did you capture today? Smoker had 2 cigars in his mouth and his silver hair was parted in a 3:7 ratio. Wearing a navy cloak, with a sea stone fist behind him emitting a cold light. At this moment, he was sitting on a 3-wheeled motorcycle, looking at the people around him fearlessly. Reporting to Colonel Smoker, no pirates were captured today. Smoker breathed a sigh of relief. The pirates had indeed become less active in recent days. Perhaps it was because Garp often visited the East China Sea. Therefore, the East China Sea is called the weakest sea. Clap, clap. There was a sound of footsteps. Shen Yuan was still wearing a black robe. With the 5 skill points he gained from punching in, he had already upgraded his swordsmanship to the maximum level. It is no exaggeration to say that if Kaido were to take Shen Yuan's strongest blow head-on, he would be seriously injured and would have no chance to fight back. Smoker noticed Shen Yuan approaching from a distance, and narrowed his eyes slightly, staring at him intently. Seeing Shen Yuan walking past him, Smoker was suddenly startled. That person! That person! Smoker was stunned and looked at Shen Yuan with horror. That man, what happened? Mr. Smoker. Tashiji was very curious and quickly looked up and around. That person's eyes are not right, it's like... Scenes flashed through Smoker's mind. That feeling, is like being stared at by a wild beast. Dashiki was stunned and stared over at a loss. Shen Yuan didn't pay attention to Smoker. At this moment, he was thinking about how to find Rayleigh. If Rayleigh is not in Rogue Town, he is in Shampoo Island. At that time, you can directly cross the Grand Line to Shampoo and complete your goal of finding a Murloc partner. When sailing on the sea, it is essential to have a partner who is proficient in water. Wait a moment. Smoker's voice reached Shen Yuan's ears. His body paused. He looked back at Smoker and stood there waiting for Smoker to come forward. Wait a minute, who are you? Smoker asked. Shen Yuan. Shen Yuan? Are you Shen Yuan? Over the years, I've heard Vice Admiral Garp say that you are Vice Admiral Garp's grandson. Shen Yuan's face darkened. This old guy is telling everyone that I am his grandson? Why is it so awkward? He was stunned. He didn't refute and just nodded. How about it, do you want to spar with me? Shen Yuan was happy. How could the baby not want the experience that was delivered to his door? Okay, I'll be happy to accompany you. At this moment on the coast, some fishermen who were preparing to go out to sea to fish did not leave immediately. Instead, he stared at the duel on the field with great interest. After all, this kind of scene might only be seen once in a lifetime. Smoker reached behind his back and clenched the sea stone fists tightly, staring at Shen Yuan in front of him. Looking at Shen Yuan again, he didn't even make an attacking stance. This made Smoker feel insulted. He had been stationed in Rogue Town for the past few years. Although he could not dominate the East China Sea, he was still somewhat famous. Who do you think I am? I'm the White Hunter. White Snake. His arm turned into smoke and coiled around like a poisonous snake. The right hand touched the hilt of the knife, the left hand was covered with armed color and grabbed the smoke arm, the right hand pulled out Tian Shen and swung it out in an instant. Smoker was shocked when he saw the black sword energy in front of him. So he quickly stepped back, retracted his arm, and narrowly avoided the attack. How is it? Do you still want to fight? Smoker took a deep breath of air, this feeling of oppression was unprecedented. White fist. The smoke fist strikes again. Squeak. Shen Yuan grasped Smoker's fist and applied a little force. Smoker felt the pain and cold sweat instantly broke out on his forehead. He flashed again and came in front of Smoker. The black armament color domineering covered the surface of the fist, and he punched Smoker in the face. Oh! Smoker flew backwards more than 10 meters, and his cigar flew into the air, leaving an arc of smoke. Smoker coughed up a mouthful of blood, and forced himself to get up. He thrust out all 10 of his sea stone hands instantly. This scene shocked and frightened Tashiji. What shocked him was Shen Yuan's swordsmanship in front of him, and what he feared was that Smoker would be beaten to death by this man. Regardless of his injuries, Smoker attacked again, this time using the 10 hands of Sea Tower Stone. With a sharp sound of breaking through the air, Smoker launched the offensive with the attitude of risking his life. Call out! Shen Yuan did not dodge or evade, and punched again. At the moment when the 10 hands collided with the fist, the 10 hands could no longer maintain their form. I saw the 10 hands began to break inch by inch, and finally the entire hand was shattered. Shen Yuan's fist remained as powerful as ever and still hit Smoker's face hard. Oh! Smoker flew backwards a second time, and this time he was motionless, unable to move even if he wanted to. You are a weak and pathetic ability user, you don't know how high the sky is and how deep the earth is. How can a waste like you be on par with Kakashi? Shen Yuan sighed lightly and turned to look at Dashiki who was standing there in a daze. How about it? Do you want to try it too? Dashiki trembled all over, but her pursuit of swordsmanship overcame her inner fear, and she raised the long sword in her hand and pointed it at Shen Yuan. Nice swordsmanship. As a swordsman's highest etiquette, I will fight you with my strongest slash. Dashiki looked determined, nodded, and raised the knife in her hand. Showers. One sword style. Blacklight funeral. Shen Yuan was very satisfied with this name. As a swordsman, he must have his own style. Then there was a flash of sword light, and then they collided. As expected, Tashiji's attack was easily resolved, and then a horrible wound appeared on Tashiji's body. Pfft! A hideous wound appeared on Dashiji's chest, it was extremely terrifying. Oh! Defeat the plot characters Smoker and Dashiji, and level up by 33. Shen Yuan nodded secretly. He was now level 33. When he reached level 40, he could learn Conqueror's Haki. Dashiki forced herself to stand up and forced a smile. Thank you for your guidance, senior. It made me realize the shortcomings of my own strength. After saying that, Dashiji fell to the ground with a bang. Smoker also woke up slowly. In fact, neither of them were seriously injured. Shen Yuan, what do you mean by those words? Smoker was panting heavily, and his navy cloak had flown away to who knows where. Smoker, there's nothing wrong with blindly developing your fruit abilities, but the mistake is that you're too weak. Smoker's face turned black, and his already painful body became even worse. If you don't mind, I'm heading to the Grand Line next, so follow me out to sea. It can be as short as a few months or as long as a year. During this time, I will guide you in practicing your haki, so that you can have a place in the new world. Smoker's eyes lit up. But it got dark again. This guy wants me to change jobs. The Navy becomes a pirate. Chapter 11. Pluto Rayleigh. Are you going to be a pirate? Smoker asked tentatively. No, it's an adventurer. My identity is an adventurer. Shen Yuan said firmly. Then why are you going to the Grand Line? Of course I want to see the world. Does going to the Grand Line mean I'm a pirate? Didn't your mother teach you not to discriminate based on your status when you were a child? Smoker nodded, then shook his head, his CPU burned out. But in order to become stronger, what does it matter if I receive billions of points of punishment? Boy, that's a good point. A voice came from a distance, with grey hair, reading glasses, a white cape and flip-flops. Who else could it be? Rayleigh. The Pirate King's right arm. Boy, are you interested in fighting with me? Rayleigh witnessed the entire battle that just took place, and at this moment the warlike gene in his body was faintly jumping. Of course, after all, you are the right-hand man of the Pirate King, Pluto Rayleigh. Rayleigh smiled and said, did you come here specially to see me? Yes and no. Rayleigh was stunned for a moment, but then he drew out his long sword and got ready. On this side, Shen Yuan also drew out his sword and stood still, his eyes flashing red. What a dangerous junior. Rayleigh smiled, life and death are unpredictable. A high-speed slash came towards him. The latter didn't dodge or evade and casually swung out a flying slash. The two collided with each other, emitting circles of short-lived air waves. Call out! The supreme fast shoes are coming at a rapid speed. Rayleigh's right foot was suddenly covered with armed color domineering and kicked straight towards Shen Yuan. It narrowly brushed past Shen Yuan's right cheek. Shen Yuan grabbed Rayleigh's ankle with his backhand, used his strength to turn him around, and then threw him heavily to the ground. This was not the end. He quickly used his domineering power to slam into Rayleigh's body. Rayleigh rolled over to dodge, and swung his sword again to confuse his opponent. The lenses under his glasses flickered slightly, and his right leg was covered with domineering aura again. A kick hit Shen Yuan's arm. Oh! Black and red lightning surrounded the two of them. Hegemony color entanglement. Old man! You have a lot of work to do. After saying that, Shen Yuan suddenly felt that his internal organs were shifted. Shen Yuan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. At this moment, he no longer needed to suppress it. The top-level armed color covered the sky. Tension also exploded with unprecedented power, and black mist continued to flow on the blade. A knife was swung out violently. Rayleigh hurriedly drew his sword to fight him. The two of them were like two flashes of lightning, constantly shuttling in the air. Only the sound of ping-pong-pong could be heard from above, continuing this excellent battle. At this time, even someone as strong as Rayleigh had cold sweat on his forehead. His armament color might be at the level of Garp. Clang! Clang! Ding-dong! The two figures gradually overlapped and the fierce battle continued. The thrilling sound of collision continued to be heard, and this scene made Smoker on the side stunned. A battle between two powerful people with no fruit abilities. He has never experienced this before in his life. Boom! A flash of black blade shone, and Rayleigh was instantly cut flying. Bang! Rayleigh hit the ground. Lanjiao! Boo! Ha! Ha! A combination of storm kick and slash. Release multiple times in a short period of time to form a continuous stream of slashes. Ding ding ding! Rayleigh took Lan's kick in an orderly manner. When he was stunned for a moment. Another black slash. Rayleigh's eyes widened. He dodged in advance with the help of his observation haki, narrowly avoiding the slash. This slash lowered the altitude of the rogue town pier by several meters. A bean-sized bead of sweat fell quietly to the ground. Rayleigh adjusted his glasses and the pressure suddenly increased. One sword style. Black flash. A combination of quick sword slash, and a swift slash came again. Rayleigh drew his sword again to fight back. Chiang! The sword in Rayleigh's hand was knocked behind him by this knife. Gradually, Rayleigh became more and more powerless. Due to carelessness, he was hit hard in the face by his punch, and flew backwards more than 10 meters and landed next to Smoker. Boom! Rayleigh staggered to his feet, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and was about to speak when this braggart spat out a mouthful of blood. Wow! A large mouthful of blood fell to the ground, and Rayleigh was gasping violently, looking extremely weak. Seeing the former's look, Shen Yuan stopped attacking. Defeat the plot character Rayleigh and increase your level to level 38. Shen Yuan was delighted and allocated his skill points rationally, then opened the attribute bar eagerly. Open the system properties bar. Name, Shen Yuan. Age, 14 years old. Identity, Adventurer. Skills, Navy 6 Styles, LV1, Swordsmanship Mastery, Max Level. Physical Enhancement, LV11, Agility Enhancement, LV1, Strength Enhancement, LV1, Speed Enhancement, LV1. Armament Haki, Max Level, Observation Haki, LV4. Physique, 99.6/100. Agility, 43.5/100. Speed, 50.6/100. Strength, 70.6/100. Level, 38. Through the battles during this period, your 4 attributes have increased a lot. At the same time, by maxing out the strengthening skills, your physical attributes are just around the corner from reaching their peak. Shen Yuan specializes in offense, and his style of fighting by injuring others with injury frightens the enemy, so he doesn't pay much attention to speed and agility. Most of his current attributes were honed in battle. Rayleigh took out a pot of wine and drank it slowly, looking at Shen Yuan in front of him with a smile. As expected of Garp's grandson. Rayleigh tilted his head back, took a sip of wine, wiped his mouth, and sighed heavily. Strong and powerful, superb swordsmanship. Young man, what is your dream? Rayleigh looked at Shen Yuan with interest, waiting for Shen Yuan's reply. Me? Rayleigh nodded. Give this world a shuffle. Rayleigh's old face was startled, and then he smiled with relief. Where is your journey next? The Grand Route. How about I accompany you for a while? I also want to settle down in the Sabayati archipelago. Smoker's face turned dark. The Navy and pirates are traveling together, and there is also an adventurer? I give in, I give in. Smoker muttered softly. Of course, but you have to work. Rayleigh chuckled and nodded. Shen Yuan ignored them and turned to walk towards the execution platform. Relis Mog also followed. Dashiki woke up slowly and stood there in a daze. Where is this place? The surrounding environment was in a mess and dilapidated state. Shen Yuan came to the execution platform and just stared at it quietly without saying a word. In fact, he was searching for the characters in the plot around him. Bartolomeo, where are you? Shen Yuan thought to himself and couldn't help but look around. Rayleigh frowned, what are you looking for? After looking around and not finding it, Shen Yuan simply gave up looking. He took another deep look at the execution platform and left this town of beginning and end. Naval Headquarters, Marine Vander. What? You said Smoker and Tashiji are missing. Marshal Zhangguo, Colonel Smoker may have left Rogue Town with Shen Yuan. Zhangguo took a deep breath and slammed his hand on the table. Oh. What else happened? The Marine who reported the incident tried to recall for a while, then spoke again. Shen Yuan encountered Pluto Rayleigh, and a fierce battle took place at the Rogue Town dock. Who won? Zhangguo asked anxiously. Maybe, it's Shen Yuan. Hiss. Zhangguo took a breath. Although he had expected this result, he still couldn't control his shock when he heard it with his own ears. After hanging up the phone, I listened to the reports during this period. At the beginning, there were small-scale battles, and now Rayleigh appeared. This has to make the Navy pay attention. Killing the Navy captain, killing Zhang Jiao and his cat brothers who had a bounty of 8 million berries, and then defeating Dashiki and the others in Rogue Town, these are nothing. The most important thing is that Shen Yuan defeated Rayleigh. But he didn't kill him. This proves that Shen Yuan is not against the pirates. Shen Yuan is both good and evil, and is an extremely unstable factor. Come here, prepare the bounty. Zhangguo sighed, Garp, we really can't cover up this time. Chapter 12, First Bounty. A blessing or a curse? Ga. 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 Shen Yuan touched the head of the messenger pigeon, bought a newspaper, lay down on the recliner and began to read. Here's your bounty. Rayleigh held the bottle of wine in one hand and a brand new bounty in the other. How much? Shen Yuan asked urgently. The bounty is 5 million baileys, God of Death Shen Yuan. On the bounty list was a photo of Shen Yuan with one hand on the hilt of a knife and the other hand clenched into a fist. Shen Yuan smiled and looked at his glorious deeds recorded in the newspaper. Rayleigh, it seems that I stepped on you to get to the position. It seems that this old man Zhangguo wants to flatter himself to death. He is given the title of Death God at the age of 14, but it suits me just fine. Rayleigh smiled without saying anything, walked to Shen Yuan and checked the contents of the newspaper with him. Smoker stood at the bow of the ship with a dark face, steering the helm. His little face turned pale and blue, and it seemed that he was here to be the helmsman. East China Sea, Kakozia village. Nami ran around the village with Shen Yuan's bounty order, jumping for joy. Nami! Don't run around! Mère was following Nami, holding a large basket of oranges and kept giving her instructions. 530 million baileys. 530 million baileys. Brother Shen Yuan is so awesome. Jian stared at the contents of the newspaper with a gloomy face, exhaled and said slowly, fortunately, this kid didn't kill innocent people indiscriminately, otherwise I would have beaten him to death. Mère smiled without saying anything, staring at Jian lovingly, if you want to kill Xiao Shen Yuan, you have to get past me first. Jian's face turned red, and he threw down the newspaper and ran away. Mère picked up the newspaper on the ground with a big laugh, then looked into the distance. I hope you can really realize your dream. East China Sea, Windmill Village. Garp took Shen Yuan's bounty notice and posted it in the tavern, then asked for a glass of wine in a heroic manner. Give me a drink. Makina smiled and handed Garp a glass of wine, then slowly said, why is Mr. Garp so happy today? My grandson defeated Rayleigh head-on. The first bounty is 530 million Baileys. Garp didn't care at all about the bounty on his grandson, and he didn't care even if he was scolded by Sengoku. Your grandson is really amazing. Makina also agreed. Old man, why don't you? Ace looked at the bulletin board where the pirate bounty orders were posted, and saw Shen Yuan's bounty order at first glance. Brother, your bounty is so high. Luffy also noticed the bounty, his eyes were full of stars. Yet old man, what did big brother do? Garp glanced at the two little ones behind him and threw a newspaper over to them. See for yourself. Luffy couldn't read, but Ace knew a little and began to read to him. Death God Shen Yuan went out to sea as an adventurer. He killed Colonel Mouse in Shields Town, killed the pirate Zhang Jiao and his men when passing through Ziluabia village, and defeated the Navy Captain Smoker in Rogue Town. In the end, he fought against Pluto Rayleigh and won a great victory. As Ace recited, his expression gradually became one of horror. He fought against Pluto Rayleigh and won. Ace suddenly remembered what Shen Yuan had said to him before. No matter what your identity is, you must have your own beliefs, your own convictions, and your own ideals. Ace ignored the noisy people in the tavern and sat aside to start thinking. An unknown island in the East China Sea. Come on, come on. Drink, drink. Red-haired Shanks is holding a banquet with everyone, and a cheerful atmosphere fills the entire island. Shanks, there's a very interesting kid here. Hawkeye walked over slowly, holding a brand new bounty in his hand. Oh. Red-haired man took the bounty from Hawkeye's hand with confusion, and started reminiscing about the past with Hawkeye while reading it. Hawkeye, you. Before he finished speaking, the red-haired man saw Shen Yuan's name at first glance. He was not unfamiliar with this name. This is the kid who wanted to challenge me. Who would have thought that he would have a bounty of 500 million now? I know this kid. The red-haired man smiled faintly. Hawkeye became interested and continued, this kid's swordsmanship seems to be very superb. The hand that touched the hilt of the sword. It's Ryu Sakura armament haki. The red-haired man said solemnly. If possible, you should go to the Grand Line now and strangle him in the cradle. This may affect your plan. Hawkeye folded his arms, wore a top hat, and the black knife behind him revealed a sinister temperament. The red-haired man shook his head and did not continue the topic. Instead, he touched his broken arm. I've already placed my bet. The red-haired man sighed, this kid is very ambitious and difficult to control. Hawkeye took a deep breath, then said seriously, I must spar with this brat in swordsmanship if I have the chance. After saying this, Hawkeye also rarely picked up a glass of wine and started a banquet with the members of the Red Hair Pirates. People like Kaido and Charlotte Linlin didn't react much when they saw the bounty order. White-bearded Edward Newgate took Shen Yuan's bounty list and liked it more and more. This kid is Garp's grandson. If I recruit him as my son, wouldn't I be a generation younger than Garp? The old man with white beard turned dark and looked up at the sea. A top genius actually goes out to sea as an adventurer. Perhaps this is why he is isolated from the world. Whitebeard shook his head and laughed. Marco stood there in a daze, looking at his father's expression with inexplicable curiosity. Dad, whose bounty are you looking at? Marco walked up with a smile and took the bounty handed over by Whitebeard. Death God Shen Yuan? What a weird name. Marco smiled and shook his head. This kid is quite capable. The fact that he was able to defeat Old Man Rayleigh head-on is enough to prove his strength. Marco smacked his lips. What if the Navy fabricated the news? As we all know, pictures cannot be photoshopped. Whitebeard laughed heartily, Gulala. Gulala. This world has been riddled with holes for a long time. It needs a little eccentric kid like you. Marco and the others stared at their father in amazement, and laughed for no reason. East China Sea, Orange Town. Buggy the Clown has arrived at Orange Town and quickly occupied it, holding a bounty order for Red Hair in one hand and a bounty order for the super rookie from the East China Sea in the other. Red-haired Shanks is such a bastard, I won't let him off. And what's up with this kid? The first bounty was 500 million Baileys? Did he blow up the Navy headquarters? Buggy was very interested, if I meet this guy, I will definitely get the 500 million Baileys reward. Brother, dinner is ready. Young men, get ready for the party. Profound. The one who reacted the most was Akainu. At this moment, he was still one of the admirals. Kizaru and Aokiji didn't take it seriously. They were no longer surprised by such people. This is Vice Admiral Garp's grandson. Akainu said with a gloomy face. Oh. Kizaru became interested and picked up the newspaper beside him to read. Vice Admiral Garp's descendants are really monsters. Kizaru said half jokingly and half seriously. Aokiji also nodded silently without saying anything. This brat really deserves to die. Akainu walked out of the meeting room angrily and slammed the door. This scene was a bit like Danzo. Chapter 13, Whiskey Hill. Will I be welcome? 4998, 4999, 5000. After finishing the training, Shen Yuan put down the barbell and lay on the recliner. My physical fitness is just a little bit away from reaching the peak, just one final push. Thinking of this, Shen Yuan silently looked at his attribute values. Shen Yuan, there is Gemini Cape ahead, do you want to stop? Rayleigh pointed to a lighthouse in the distance and asked Shen Yuan. Shen Yuan nodded while eating breakfast. Master, is it okay to eat? Tashiji humbly stood behind Shen Yuan holding a plate. After a night of instruction, Tashiji had made some progress in swordsmanship. It's okay, not bad, keep up the good work. Tashiji smiled and nodded, very happy. Smoker was still at the helm, looking quite black. The ship broke through the waves and moved slowly forward into the breeze. The group entered the sea area of Gemini Cape. At this time, a whale suddenly rushed over. The huge tail came directly towards the ship. At this moment, Shen Yuan moved. It flew into the air with the moon step and kicked its tail suddenly. The attacks from both sides instantly created huge waves, shocking the surrounding sea kings and forcing them to swim dozens of meters backwards. The whale was dissatisfied and flapped its tail again. Shen Yuan still kicked forward. The surrounding sea kings, aminos. Go ahead and fight, but don't take us with you. The whale lab was so unsteady from the powerful attack that he retreated several meters before he managed to steady himself. Lab, I have a secret you want to know, but you have to agree to one condition. Lab slapped the water suddenly to express his confusion. Lab, I know something about the Rumba pirates. In exchange, you are not allowed to hurt yourself again and wait for Brook to come to you, understand? When Lab heard this, he instantly docile and listened quietly to Shen Yuan's story. Rayleigh on the boat also listened to Shen Yuan's story with great interest, as if he remembered the time when Roger traveled. After the Rumba pirates crossed the Red Earth continent, the captain was infected with an unknown virus on an island. He finally let his companions leave and continue sailing. He died of the disease on the island alone, and then let Brook become the next captain. After that, they passed through the Devil's Triangle and fought with other pirate groups. Since the enemy's weapons were poisoned, all the members of the Rumba pirates were injured and poisoned in the battle, and they could not find a place to treat their injuries in the Devil's Triangle. In the end, everyone was poisoned to death, and only Brook was resurrected after death due to the power of the Yomiri fruit. After Shen Yuan finished speaking, he fell on Lebu's head and gently stroked Lebu's scarred head. Don't lose heart, there are still survivors of the Rumba pirates, he will come, and you must take good care of your body after this, understand? Lab slapped the water happily and cheered a few times. www. Shen Yuan returned to the boat with satisfaction and continued to let Smoker steer the boat as it sailed into the interior of the Red Earth continent. Kurikas witnessed the whole process, watched with a smile as the ship in front of him sailed into the Red Earth continent, and welcomed everyone into the Red Earth continent with a smile. Old man, don't you recognize me? Rayleigh smiled and walked forward, hugging Crocus. Kurikas said with tears in his eyes, Rayleigh, why are you here? Even a strong man like Rayleigh couldn't help shedding tears at this moment. He hadn't seen his old comrade for several years, and this friendship was invaluable. How have you been lately? The two of them just chatted casually, not paying any attention to the others. Shen Yuan didn't care. As he watched the rewards for checking in at the Red Soil continent arrive, his little face was as smiling as a flower. Reach the Red Earth continent and receive 5 bonus skill points. Shen Yuan looked at the 5 skill points and hesitated before adding them all to observation haki. Entering Kurikas's cabin, I looked at the old ship's doctor and saw that he had no intention of challenging him. He just quietly listened to the two old friends reminiscing about the past and the stories they told. Isn't it a pleasant thing to drink wine, eat cakes and listen to stories? After a few hours. Let's go. Rayleigh looked at Shen Yuan with lingering intent, then stood up and prepared to board the ship. Kurikas also saw everyone off and said goodbye to them with a smile. He looked at the docile lab in front of him, breathed a sigh of relief, and could finally feel at ease. It's not completely without gain. At least there are 5 guaranteed skill points. Shen Yuan thought so and continued to let Smoker take the helm. Smoker. On the boat, Shen Yuan taught Dashiki how to practice swordsmanship. Rayleigh lay on the recliner and watched quietly. Smoker still remained at the helm. Smoker couldn't help himself and was about to speak when he was interrupted by Shen Yuan. Wait a minute. Once we enter the Grand Line, I promise to let me personally teach you how to practice haki. Smoker took a deep breath, closed his eyes and continued to steer. In a moment, under the swordsmanship guidance of Shen Yuan and Dashiki, the group arrived at Whiskey Mountain. The mountain that welcomes pirates. We are adventurers, so how can they still welcome me? Rayleigh smiled and said, I'm a pirate. Smoker. Step onto land and familiar rewards will arrive. Reach Whiskey Peak. Get bonus skill points 5. All 5 skills have been added to the observation haki, and now the level of observation haki has reached level 14, and it can even predict the future for a short period of time. What a sin! Shen Yuan and his group walked into the town step by step, and couldn't help but smack their lips when they saw the devastated town in front of them. Hey, fellow pirates! The leading minion saw Rayleigh standing beside him before he could finish his words. It's Pluto Rayleigh. The expression on the minion's face gradually became frightened, and finally became extremely terrifying. Run, run! Rayleigh smiled slightly, and then a domineering aura suddenly burst out, instantly knocking out the minions around him. Shen Yuan took a step forward. The dark-skinned and strange-looking minion in front of him became alert instantly, but before he could react, he was punched in the head by Shen Yuan. Oh! The huge force instantly smashed the head of the minion standing in front of him. Smoker, standing at the back, gasped and looked at Shen Yuan in front of him with shock. Oh! The minion fell to the ground. Shen Yuan continued to look around, but did not see the target he wanted to kill, and he couldn't help but feel very disappointed. Candle attack! Candle! Shen Yuan is in the mood. Is it the third brother who will be the emperor's deputy in a dozen years? Turning around, he saw A3 above his head. A man in a striped shirt and khaki pants had a candle in his hand and suddenly shot it towards Shen Yuan. Whoosh! Shen Yuan easily dodged the attack, quickly moved in front of him, and suddenly punched him. Oh! The candle man was knocked away instantly, and even smashed several tombstones behind the mountain. Defeat the plot character Galantino and increase your level to level 39. Death Mood. Huang Jianzhou kept waving his brush below, trying to restrict Shen Yuan's movements. Shen Yuan glanced at Huang Jianzhou coldly, and used his super strong observation and perception to easily avoid the attack. He dodged and moved in front of Huang Jianzhou, drew his sword and chopped the drawing board into pieces, then grabbed Huang Jianzhou's pigtails and lifted him up. Let me go! Let me go! Shen Yuan became more and more annoyed the more he looked at her. You are so disobedient! Snapped! A big slap in the face came over. Golden Week fainted instantly. Shen Yuan threw it aside casually, looked at the shemale and bald man in front of him, licked his lips, and was full of fighting spirit. Chapter 14. Baroque Studio. Defeat the plot character Miss Golden Week and increase your level to level 40. As soon as he reached level 40, the Conqueror's haki skill had already unlocked the shackles. Without hesitation, he added both of his skills to his Conqueror's haki. For a time, the vast aura condensed in an instant, and Shen Yuan released it uncontrollably. The black domineering color instantly spread from the center to the surroundings. This scene made Rayleigh, who was watching the battle from a distance, marvel. Shen Yuan clenched his fist tentatively, and black and white lightning instantly wrapped around him, and an even more powerful momentum was emitted. Domineering color, entangled? It seems that his own qualifications are too high. This ability can be easily learned as long as he has the motivation. Shen Yuan couldn't bear it any longer and suddenly blasted towards the ground. The surroundings began to tremble like an earthquake. Smoker and Tashiji behind him couldn't stand steadily and had to stagger and hold on to the houses beside them before they could keep their balance. Bonus scalp tingled when he saw this scene. The fist caused a small earthquake and he didn't know how many of the blows he could take. Having said that, Mr. Wondas. Bonus transformed his hands into 2 sharp long swords and rushed forward head on. Oh! Shen Yuan knocked Bonus unconscious with a casual punch, and he was embedded in the ground like a head over heels onion. Shemale fist. Memories of summer. Feng Clay kicked him in the air, but Shen Yuan dodged the attack like a prophet, stretched out his right arm and grabbed his collar. He took a step back using inertia and exerted force with his arms suddenly. Boom! Like bonus, Von Clay is embedded in the land. Why? You want to plant it in the ground, too. Mrs. Fingers were about to run away at first, but under the influence of the domineering aura. My legs are weak. How to run? You tell me how to run? The two fingers quickly activated the power of the fruit, and sharp thorns grew out of the arms, blocking the chest. This time, his fingers learned their lesson. Looking at the green onions sticking in the ground, cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Shen Yuan moved. Seeing Shen Yuan's figure getting closer and closer, he pointed his fingers at the stern face that gradually appeared before his eyes. She didn't react. My eyes caught the picture, but my body couldn't keep up with the action. The fist hit his arms instantly. Feeling the severe pain in both arms, he clenched his teeth with both fingers. Without waiting for his reaction, the former's big hand tried to grab his collar again, but this time didn't catch it. You're wearing a fucking tights. Shen Yuan simply grabbed his neck and swung him violently. The latter was thrown into the air, forming a graceful arc, and finally landed suddenly next to Feng Clay. A family should be neat and tidy, with men and women being equal. Defeat the plot characters Das Bonus, Von Clay, and Pola, and level up to level 43. Shen Yuan did not hesitate at all. All of them were added to the Conqueror's Haki. At this time the level of Conqueror's Haki had reached level 5. Shen Yuan looked at the three people standing side by side with onions stuck upside down, then looked around, and finally looked at Miss Christmas who suddenly appeared, and couldn't help but be stunned. You, Mouse, go and call your manager. Christmas was stunned, and the two looked at each other for more than 10 seconds. Christmas reacted, dug up the soil and disappeared into the ground. Once Christmas was gone, the only person left on the field was a huge fat man, with a silly dachshund beside him. I was so focused on them that I forgot there was a loser like you. Mr. 4BEB was stunned. He didn't expect to see the hellish scene in front of him just after rushing over. Rayleigh calmly stood aside and drank. Smoker held the tied-up golden week in his hand, and this one was even more heavyweight. There were 3 colleagues stuck upside down next to him. He is not stupid, just a little dull. Who would fight hard in this situation? Those who fight hard are fools. Desert Sword. A slash of sand came from underground. Shen Yuan smiled faintly, dodged to the side, and aimed directly at the dumbfounded Bebu in front of him. Before Beb could swing the baseball bat, he felt dizzy and was finally plunged heavily into the ground. Crocodile appeared in front of Shen Yuan with a gloomy face. A few drops of venom slowly dripped from the poisonous hook in his right hand. At this moment, he stared at the attacker in front of him with a serious expression. From time to time, he looked at the several green onions stuck in the ground next to him. What is the purpose of Shen Yuan, the god of death with a bounty of 530 million berries, coming to our base of Baroque Studio? Shen Yuan, I just came to visit, but as soon as I landed on the island, they came up and beat me up. I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't dare to ask. Golden Week woke up at this time and gnashed his teeth. He was complaining in his heart. You're still pretending to be innocent. Shen Yuan didn't waste any time, pulled out Tiangxun and prepared for battle. Finally, here comes a guy that I can slightly interest myself in. Shen Yuan opened his mouth and licked his lips, his eyes flashing with ferocity. As the murderous aura leaked out, a surge of domineering aura burst out instantly. Call out! Crocodile was stunned for a moment, then reacted again. What appeared in his eyes was a slashing blow carrying black and white lightning. Flying sand barrier. Crocodile quickly used the sand to protect himself, but he was still careless and was knocked back a few steps by the aftermath of the slash. The former continued to attack, slashing again, this time even more fiercely than the last time, and the whistling slash flew towards Crocodile again quickly. This time Crocodile will not be careless and will once again use sand to create a barrier to protect his body. However, what he didn't expect was that a fist suddenly attacked him with lightning speed. Oh! A loud noise echoed throughout the island. The blow was blocked by Lao Sha with his golden hook. His golden left hand was shattered by Shen Yuan. The force was as powerful as ever, and it fractured his already disabled left arm again. You are still too weak. Shen Yuan disdainfully complained, raised his leg high, and launched another black slash. I think you ate the quick slashing fruit. Lao Sha was scrambling to defend against Shen Yuan's attack. At this time, he was already confused and couldn't even detect the position of his opponent. At this moment, he was like a headless fly, mobilizing his abilities and readying himself to go, while looking around for Shen Yuan. Rayleigh smiled slightly, raised his head, took a sip of wine, and quietly watched the battle. As for Smoker, he was also deeply moved when he saw Shen Yuan's battle. In fact, Shen Yuan's battle at this time can be explained by just one word: reckless. However, Dashiki stared at Shen Yuan with admiration in her eyes, and she couldn't help but tighten her grip on Shi Yu and made a secret decision. Oh! A punch fell from the sky and hit Lao Sha's head heavily. Lao Sha's eyes rolled back instantly and he lost consciousness instantly. He was lifted up by Shen Yuan, and another onion was inserted between his fingers. Defeat the plot character Crocodile and increase your level to level 46. Let's call it a day. Shen Yuan wiped his palms and then noticed the rat that was trying to escape into the ground. Do you want me to put it in you first, or do you want me to beat you half to death before putting it in you first? Christmas didn't dare to speak, and walked forward quietly. The result is no surprise. He lost consciousness after being punched by Shen Yuan and fell into Lao Sha's side. Knock off. Defeat the plot characters Bibu and Urafei, and level up to level 48. The level was raised to level 48, and all 5 skill points were added to the domineering Haki, bringing the level to level 10. Tisk tisk, you are such a bunch of rubbish. I have to go through so much trouble to punish you. You must give me all your treasures for safekeeping for 10 years. Smoker. Go over there and search for treasure. Smoker's face turned even darker. I'm a navy. Chapter 15. Ancient Weapons Pluto. Do you know what Crocodile's goal is? Shen Yuan held a wine glass in his hand and looked up at the Whiskey Mountain under the moonlight. The tombstones set off the gloomy environment of the island. Rayleigh became interested, looking at the people in the Baroque studio who were tied up. After thinking it over carefully, he casually said, "Is it for the treasure? Why don't they go to Raftalia for the treasure?" Rayleigh was shocked. How does this guy know Raftal? How do you know that the great treasure is in Raftal? Rayleigh's expression changed again and again, but finally he shook his head helplessly. You know the legend of ancient weapons, right? Just like your title, Hades. Rayleigh nodded. He naturally knew this statement. The ancient weapon Pluto is said to be an extremely advanced warship that can destroy an island with one shell. Shen Yuan nodded, looked around and saw nothing unusual, and continued. In order to consolidate its own ruling position, the world government must firmly control this ancient weapon. At this point, even Lao Sha became interested, and his originally cloudy eyes suddenly lit up. Hey, kid, do you know Pluto? Lao Sha raised his head slightly, and looked at Shen Yuan with desire in his eyes. Shen Yuan said nothing and took a sip of the wine in the glass. But the blueprints for Pluto's production are not here. To be more precise, Pluto's design blueprints are not in Alabasta, that fascinating place. Lao Sha trembled all over, but he was not excited. He was tied there and listened quietly to Shen Yuan's narration. Ancient weapons are extremely important, so this blueprint is also extremely secret. Rayleigh turned around and said to Shen Yuan seriously. Could it be that you know where the design drawings of Pluto are? Shen Yuan shook his head. If I knew, I would have snatched the design drawings long ago, and then blasted Mary Joa into slag in one shot. In fact, not to mention Pluto, even Neptune, Shen Yuan knows everything about it. Having said that, everyone present was shocked. Be it pirates or navy, their jaws almost dropped to the ground at this moment. Cough, cough, cough. Lei Li choked on the wine he drank, wiped the corner of his mouth, and stared at Shen Yuan with burning eyes. You kid, it seems that you have great hostility towards the world government. Shen Yuan didn't care. His right hand was covered with armed color domineering, and he looked at the horizon with fierce eyes. Old Sha, do you want to follow me? I will definitely clean up this world completely. Crocodile listened in a daze. At this moment, he no longer had the arrogance he had before, and only fanaticism remained. You are really crazy. Well, I will follow you to see what kind of world this is. Shen Yuan nodded, then you still have to continue to run the Baroque studio. This will be my most powerful intelligence network in this world. He casually threw out a den den mushi, and Lao Sha, who had untied the restraints, took it steadily. See you later. Shen Yuan turned around and prepared to leave with everyone. Hey! Don't forget our agreement. Lao She held a cigar in his mouth and smiled slightly. Of course. After saying that, everyone disappeared from Lao She's sight. Smoker dragged 5 or 6 large boxes, and he did as much work as the production team's donkeys could do. Lao She shook his hands, picked up the broken golden hook, and looked at the Baroque people. From now on, our goal is to collect underground intelligence and keep abreast of the movements of major forces. Do you understand? The bruised and battered people nodded woodenly. Shen Yuan and his crew continued sailing, and Rayleigh stared at a nautical chart the whole time. Rayleigh, where is the next destination? Rayleigh wiped the wine from the corner of his mouth, put down the sea chart and said, Little Garden, the giant's territory. Giant. Shen Yuan was not sleepy tonight. He became interested as he looked at Smoker with lifeless eyes in the distance. Smoker, we will begin training tonight. I will guide you in practicing haki. Really? Smoker stood up and clenched his fists. Of course, I, Shen Yuan, will not break my promise. Smoker nodded, and his silent heart once again gained the motivation to move forward. Rayleigh returned to the house and lay on the bed. Outside, he heard Shen Yuan's angry curses and Smoker's pleas for mercy. He smiled slightly and fell asleep. You're so stupid. You can't even stand in horse stance, how did you become a naval captain? Smoker stood in horse stance and dared not speak. The person in front of me is so terrifying that I feel terrified just by looking at him. Keep your legs steady. Keep your hands flat. This is to train your concentration. Smoker said nothing and just insisted on standing in horse stance. Half an hour passed, Shen Yuan was lying on the recliner, staring at Smoker doing horse stance all the time. An hour passed, Smoker was sweating profusely, and his legs were trembling slightly. Keep going. Break your limits. Surpass yourself. Smoker stood firm, feeling a bit competitive inside. An hour and a half passed, and Smoker could no longer hold on. His eyes rolled back and he fell straight to the ground. When he woke up again, Shen Yuan was still lying in front of him, but his eyes were full of disdain. What a waste! Smoker gritted his teeth, forced himself to stand up, and maintained the horse stance again. Keep standing for a night, and you will find that you are no longer the useless person you used to be. Shen Yuan turned and entered the room, disappearing from Smoker's sight. The next day, the sun shines brightly. Blue blue blue, blue blue blue. The den den mushi rang. Shen Yuan touched the bedside table, grabbed the den den mushi and answered it. Hello? I'm Crocodile, Shen Yuan, and I have some very interesting information. Shen Yuan became interested. Tell me, let me hear it. Crocodile laughed, as if what happened last night had nothing to do with him. The youngest genius in history of the world government, CP member Rob Lucci, seems to be carrying out a mission in the Drum Kingdom of the Grand Line. Shen Yuan smiled and asked, any details? They seem to be very interested in the swallow fruit, and now Rob Lucci seems to have just arrived. Shen Yuan smiled faintly, Rob Lucci, he will die in the Drum Kingdom. Lao Sha laughed heartily, feeling very happy. Goo ha ha ha. Good. Then I'll look forward to hearing from you. Shen Yuan hung up the phone and walked out of the room. The first thing he saw was Smoker, who was still doing horse stance. Go to bed and go to sleep. Smoker felt as if he had been pardoned, and he relaxed and lost his strength instantly. He staggered into the house. Shen Yuan was eating the breakfast handed to him by Dashiki, and he had already started planning in his mind. Kill Rob Lucci and his teammates in the Drum Kingdom, and the world government will train new people to go undercover in the Seven Waters. This will make Luffy's opponents unstable. He could be the next genius, or he could be an ordinary CP member who couldn't be more ordinary. Thinking of this, Shen Yuan made up his mind that he would kill Rob Lucci. Thinking carefully about his next plan, he would not recruit those cannon fodder minions. It would be useless to have more trash who fainted after being shocked by the Conqueror's haki. If you want to win over people, you have to win over chess pieces that can be molded, regardless of their identities. When the time comes, start the war today. Chapter 16. This is the hegemony. Reach the small garden and obtain skill points 5. Clicking on the domineering haki, the level suddenly reached level 15. As soon as you step onto the land of the small garden, the reward will arrive. Very nice. Shen Yuan and his group walked into the small garden. This island is ancient and mysterious. Legend has it that there were 2 giants on the island who had been fighting for nearly 100 years. Faced with the invaders, these 2 giants are so calm. They are indeed steady. Shen Yuan smiled, drew out the heaven-swallowing sword and struck with it. Cut a large forest in half. Why don't you come out? You are really good at being a coward. The black light instantly climbed up the blade of Tianyan, and a surge of energy spread out uncontrollably, stunning all the flowers, birds, fish, and insects around. Black light funeral. The fierce slash swept through a large area of woods at the speed of light and shot towards the towering mountains in the distance. Whoosh! Just when the slash was about to flatten the entire mountain, 2 huge figures suddenly appeared. A huge sword and a huge axe. The 2 giants worked together to deflect the slashing attack and launched it into the sky. Whoosh! The slash slowly disappeared into the clouds. Even so, the 2 giants were breathing heavily and staring unfriendly at the people who appeared in front of them. Use your strongest moves. Attack me with your strongest moves. Shen Yuan raised his knife, and the sound was terrifying. Blue Demon Dongli and Red Demon Brokey slowly walked forward, looked at each other, and understood what the other meant. The 2 of them raised their long swords and giant axes high up, ready to attack. This time even Rayleigh frowned. This is the famous move of the giants, Baguo. Even Garp himself wouldn't dare to take this kind of attack head-on. But now this little brat actually wants to fight him? Shen Yuan also took up an attacking stance. With both hands tightly gripping the hilt of the heaven-swallowing sword, the space around him was even a little distorted at this moment. Strands of black and white lightning wrapped around its blade, and the power of the already dark sky surrounded by black and white lightning was even more terrifying. Let's start. Attention, warriors! Dongli and Brokey suddenly exerted force in their arms, and a powerful force burst out. An incomparable and powerful slash was launched. Boom! The Baguo slashed with unstoppable force. He smashed through forest after forest and attacked Shen Yuan fiercely. Chiang! Shen Yuan raised his knife to block. What? Rayleigh's pupils shrank suddenly. Little devil! This is a hegemonic country. Rayleigh shouted loudly, trying to remind Shen Yuan to dodge. Clang! Boom boom boom! Shen Yuan was knocked back dozens of steps by the slash, with blood slowly flowing from his mouth. Enough! Shen Yuan freed up one hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, then he withdrew Tunshan and dodged Baguo by moving sideways. I really don't dare to take this thing head-on. I don't know if it will be torn into pieces, but it will definitely hurt. Boom! The violent slashing caused waves on the sea surface. The water splashed all over the sky and instantly submerged the entire forest on the coast. Boom! Shen Yuan fell heavily to the ground, looking at his physical attributes that had reached their peak. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Good. Very energetic. Shen Yuan stepped forward quickly and came in front of the 2 giants in a flash. Lanjiao! The black slash shot towards Dongli. Meanwhile, Tian Tun has already reached Brocky's chest. Pfft! Brocky covered the tiny scar on his chest and coughed out a mouthful of blood. Dongli! Be careful! This brat's attack is special. Brocky could feel his liver trembling violently. What? Dong used his long sword to block the oncoming slash of Lan Jiao. But the tiny figure that gradually appeared in front of my eyes was getting closer and closer. The 2 looked at each other. At this moment, the 2 bodies formed a strong contrast. The contrast in size is like that between a mammoth and a house cat. Oh! The powerful punch hit Dong Li's face heavily. A huge force burst out through his body, knocking Dong Li backward and making his center of gravity unstable. Oh! Another storm kick perfectly cut into Dong Li's chest. The tiny scar instantly bleeds, causing Dong Li to become dizzy and completely lose his will to fight. Boom! Dong Li fainted and fell straight into the forest. Now! Through the battle, Shen Yuan's physical condition finally reached its maximum value. Shen Yuan opened the system's physical attribute column expectantly, and was shocked to find that there had been huge changes. Self-healing body, 100/100, the main body can automatically repair wounds when injured. When the physical strength is maxed out, it will change again. Is this the body of an immortal? Shen Yuan was a little self-deprecating, but also a little excited. What a powerful warrior! Brocky leaned against the side of the mountain, his chest heaving as he gasped for breath. Thank you very much. I came to bother you 2 seniors this time because I have a request. Brocky stared at Shen Yuan, nodded, and motioned for him to continue. I wonder if you, senior, know a giant girl named Charlotte Lingling. Brocky was stunned when he heard the name and began to think. Forget it, it's not important, senior, can you teach me your hegemony? In return, I will teach you the training method of armament haki. Armament haki? Is that the hardening method you just used? Brocky suddenly became excited and waved to Shen Yuan quickly. Oro. Hegemony is a sword technique used by two people. Of course, if one is gifted, the power can be increased to the level of a two-person sword technique. Shen Yuan just listened quietly and kept it in mind. This sword technique is to compress the power into the weapon to the extreme, and then add more power at the moment of release. Shen Yuan listened to Brocky's endless speech without interrupting him, just listening quietly. While listening, he drew out his sword and demonstrated. Is that right? Black mist gathered on the blade. As the fog got darker and darker, until it finally became the color of the night sky. On the blade, the power gradually shrank again. Buzz. Unable to maintain the charged state, Tunshan attacked fiercely, throwing out an arc-shaped slash. At the moment of slashing the separated blades, Shen Yuan exerted force again. Just like hitting a baseball, shoot out the slash like a baseball. A little more strength was injected into it, giving further impetus to the slash. Boom! The slashing blow directly cut through everything in front of it, creating a trench of several dozen meters. Wonderful! Brocky was amazed again and again, the power was even greater than the Baguio he used. Senior, I already know a thing or two about hegemony. Shen Yuan said, sheathing his sword, and extending his fist. The dark black armament haki instantly covered its surface. Black and white lightning also slowly climbed up, and the terrifying and sharp aura was fully opened, shocking the surrounding beasts one after another. This is top-level armament haki. The black and white lightning around it is my conqueror haki. Ba-chan. Brocky covered his mouth in surprise. You know? Shen Yuan asked puzzledly. There was an important person in the small garden. He had a mustache and held a long sword like you. He also demonstrated this ability to me at that time. Who else could it be except Roger, whose nose hair has grown into a mustache? Shen Yuan secretly complained. Defeat the plot characters Dongli and Brocky, and level up to level 50. 2 skill points were once again added to the domineering haki, and the level was raised to level 17. Why was this reward delayed? Do not care. Then, Shen Yuan began to explain to the two step by step the principles and guidance of this ability. Training and development, etc. Chapter 17. Flying Thunder God Technique. My consciousness suddenly became hazy, and I saw a figure approaching from afar, rushing towards this side. We have guests. Shen Yuan smiled and stood there with his arms folded to receive the guests. Rayleigh was puzzled and turned around slowly, then he saw a figure rushing towards him quickly from afar. Captain of the Whitebeard Pirates 1st Division, what can I do for you, Marco? The figure suddenly stopped less than a foot away from Shen Yuan. He was covered in blue flames, had a pineapple head, and the Whitebeard Pirates logo was on his chest. Tall, thin, dark, and small. The blue flame slowly faded, revealing its original body. Hello, Megan. No, Marco, what are you doing here? Marco glanced at the figure beside him. Just this one glance, my eyeballs almost fell to the ground. Rayleigh. Hey, young junior, hello. Rayleigh smiled and waved. Smog-Kai and the other two stood there at a loss, not moving at all. Okay, Rayleigh, don't interrupt. Shen Yuan, Dad wants to see you. Marco looked at Shen Yuan calmly. It seemed like he was waiting for Shen Yuan's reaction. Will you meet me? Shen Yuan shook his head and said slowly. We will meet naturally when the time comes. There's no need to worry about that old man Whitebeard. Shen Yuan smiled faintly and waved his hand to signal Marco to leave. Marco's expression changed instantly when he heard this. It was like a huge rock dropped into the sea. Stir up huge waves. Marco said in a bad tone. Shen Yuan, you have to catch it because I'm giving you face. Sometimes if you lift your body too high, you will fall miserably. Dashiki, I'll teach you a dish later. It's delicious. Marco. Marco's face darkened as he watched the people gradually walk away. Brocky carefully recalled Professor Shen Yuan's method of practicing domineering power, and began to practice slowly. Smoker had already returned to the ship to study and practice. After practicing horse stance for more than 10 days, I finally reaped the rewards. At this time, his physical condition has been strengthened unprecedentedly. In front of it is a wooden stake made of straw. Swing your fists and strike continuously to hone your own strength and lay the foundation for awakening the armament haki. Tashiji, wait a minute, there's a fly. As Shen Yuan stepped onto the deck, he raised his entire right arm and suddenly covered it with armament haki. When he blocked Marco's volley attack firmly. Tisk, 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 is this the magnanimity of the Whitebeard pirates? Shen Yuan turned around. Throw out a punch with great swiftness. Oh! Marco hit hard and flew to the coast. Shen Yuan, a kid who has just been out to sea for less than a month. Today I will let you see the strength of the Whitebeard pirates. After saying that, Marco flew high up with green flames all over his body and kicked towards Shen Yuan at an extremely fast speed. I was thinking of letting you go, really letting you go. Shen Yuan felt weird. I thought over and over again how I could say something more harsh. Casually resist Marco's attack. He held his chin with one hand and pondered how to organize a perfect and cruel remark. After thinking for a long time, he couldn't think of any harsh words, but in Marco's eyes, this scene turned into contempt. Asshole! Don't underestimate me. Qing Yan's output power increased instantly, but Shen Yuan remained unmoved. Do you want to dance too? Shen Yuan pondered for a long time and still felt that this sentence was quite domineering, so he used it as his catchphrase to become famous in the future. He repelled Marco's attack and flew into the air. One hand grabbed its head directly. Turn around. Stretch your arms back. Lift the left foot slightly and throw it out wildly. The former pursued the victory and quietly covered the domineering aura. He picked up Marco, who was still in a daze, and threw him into the air. I'm a fucking bird. I'm the phoenix. I can fly. What do you mean by that? Flying Thunder God technique. Shen Yuan used the moon step and the shaving speed to instantly appear above Marco, and his huge fist hit Marco's abdomen again. Oh! Marco's body fell rapidly, and he spread his blue wings to stabilize his body, but... Flying Thunder God technique. Shen Yuan appeared under Marco again. He instantly felt a gust of evil wind attacking his waist. Oh! Flying Thunder God technique. Oh! After hitting each other back and forth for more than 10 times, Shen Yuan had enough and fell to the ground. Marco also fell heavily to the ground. Rayleigh couldn't hold it in anymore and gave a weird smile. Cough, cough. Marco staggered to his feet. One hand covered his abdomen, the other hand covered his lower back. There was a trickle of blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. Shen Yuan stared coldly at the person in front of him. He began to wonder whether he should form an alliance with the Whitebeard pirates. Admittedly, the Whitebeard pirates are undoubtedly the largest force at present. With many sons and a man at the top of the world. If he could win over this force, it would be very beneficial for his layout before challenging the 5 Elder Stars. Marco, go back and tell Whitebeard that I will go find him. Marco stood up. He took a deep look at Shen Yuan. It soared into the air and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Defeat the plot character Marco and increase your level to level 53. Full level of domineering color. He. Shen Yuan rubbed his hands excitedly. Add all 3 skills to the Conqueror's haki. The full level domineering color burst out instantly. A terrifying aura spread out in all directions. Wow! A strong wind of domineering color blew across Rayleigh's face. His expression changed again and again, but he suppressed the doubts in his heart. Everyone got on the boat, and Smoker witnessed the entire battle, which could only be described in one word. Play. Just playing. He doesn't even treat Marco as a human being. After climbing onto the deck, Shen Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. He touched his stomach and waited for Dashiki to serve the dongpo pork that he had told him about. Next destination. The Drum Kingdom. Smoker quickly took the helm, Rayleigh set the sail, and the boat started slowly heading towards the Drum Kingdom. Warrior. The green ghost Dongli and the red ghost Braki stood on the shore and waved at Shen Yuan. Goodbye. He also waved and said goodbye. To be honest, Shen Yuan really has no aversion to these two. He did not use heavy hands, nor did he regard the two as weaklings. For a duel, it lasted for more than 100 years. This perseverance deserves his respect. Braki opened his mouth and yelled, when you have circled the Grand Line, come back here and we can talk about the past. Dongli also said goodbye. Warrior, thank you for the secret method you provided. Next time you come, I will teach you all my sword skills. Say it. The two giants watched the ship in the distance getting farther and farther away, and finally it turned into a small black dot and disappeared. Shen Yuan stood at the bow, still gazing deeply at the small garden island in the distance. What? Are you interested in the giants? Rayleigh said with interest. I say, old man, you should go wherever you want to cool down. Rayleigh shrank his neck and lay down on Shen Yuan's recliner. Old man, throw out your compass. Shen Yuan spoke calmly and blackmailed Rayleigh. Rayleigh did not hesitate. He threw his navigation compass to Shen Yuan. One of them took it. A delicate and small pointer is held in the hand. This time there's a watch. I always feel like something's missing. Rayleigh. I almost fell off the recliner. Chapter 18. You may not be able to catch this ball. Dad, that's it. Marco sat on the deck with a gloomy face. At this moment, he was reporting to Whitebeard what happened yesterday. Gulala. This kid is really interesting. Okay. Then I'll wait. I'll wait for you right here. Whitebeard was not angry but happy instead, and expressed his admiration. Dad, Shen Yuan's strength is truly unfathomable. I can feel from the fight that this guy doesn't treat me as a human being. Whitebeard swung the Kusakumakiri in his hand, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Gulala. This kid is old man Garp's grandson after all. It can be said that he has inherited Garp's mantle. In this sea area, the title of Iron Fist is about to change hands. Marco nodded when he heard this. He shook his head again. No, Dad, that boy seems to be a great swordsman. A swordsman. The former laughed heartily. A look of indifference on his face. I can sense that there have been a lot of reports about Shen Yuan's deeds these days. Didn't you notice anything? Marco was stunned, but he didn't notice this. This little devil kills all the evil people. Whitebeard sat down slowly, picked up the wine glass as big as a millstone, tilted his head back and took a sip. Dad. Stop drinking. Your body can't take it. I know. Right now. Grand Line, Drum Kingdom. Reach the Drum Kingdom and obtain 5 skill points. Without any hesitation, he put all 5 skill points into observation haki. I am here on behalf of the world government to kill the person with the ability of the swallow fruit. Shen Yuan imitated Lu Qi tone. As he walked and talked with Rayleigh and his companions, his sarcasm was evident in his words. Smoker's face was gloomy. A layer of armed color domineering slowly wrapped around the fist. He glanced at Dashiki who was standing next to Shen Yuan with a resentful look. This girl, Dashiki, actually mastered the armament haki entanglement in less than 7 days after practicing haki with Shen Yuan. My mentality has collapsed. Smoker secretly made up his mind that he must master the observation haki faster than Tashiji. Outsiders, please do not move. Wearing a green cotton jacket, with a big square face and steam coming out of his nostrils. He was pointing his axe at everyone with a haughty look on his face. Don't waste any more time talking. Just look at their ship and kill them and take away their treasure. A guard beside Dalton said this viciously, and there was a hint of movement. Shut your mouth. If we do this, how are we any different from pirates? Dalton had a gloomy face and spoke again calmly, Outsiders, what is your intention in coming to our country? Please be patient, we are just here to see a doctor, is it okay? Dalton breathed a sigh of relief. Judging from his appearance, he didn't look like someone who had committed a heinous crime. Okay, register your identity information with me. Captain, look at this bounty. Dalton took the bounty with suspicion, and after just one look, his eyes almost fell out. Death God Shen Yuan? A pirate with a bounty of 530 million berries. Dalton trembled as he spoke. Even the hand holding the bounty order is not working properly. Pirates. Dalton suppressed his fear and spoke again. I'm sorry, I just killed some damned people. I didn't expect there would be a bounty on my head, I'm really sorry. At this time, the crowd also recognized Rayleigh and pointed at him and shouted in fear. Pluto. Rayleigh. Rayleigh's glasses flashed in the sunlight, and he obviously noticed that he was exposed. No, buddy. I was wrapped up tightly, how did you recognize me? Shen Yuan looked at Rayleigh with a gloomy face, your cape seems to have grown on your body, Don't you know it? Rayleigh was stunned for a moment, then silently tucked his cloak into his cotton trousers. It's very strange. Shen Yuan couldn't help but complain. Intruders, stop. This matter must be reported to the king. No need. In the distance, a group of figures were approaching. The leader wore a black top hat, his hands in his pockets, looked at Dalton with cold eyes, and spoke lightly. You. Just as Dalton was about to speak, a kick came towards him. Oh. The man in the black top hat kicked out instantly, knocking Dalton several meters away. I am here on behalf of the world government to search for traces of the swallow fruit. And you, the death god Shen Yuan with a bounty of 530 million, you will also be killed by me today. Lucci spoke coldly, without a trace of emotion. Shen Yuan and Lei Li looked at each other, and their expressions suddenly became extremely strange. Shen Yuan, I will purge you evil wanted criminals in the name of justice. Shen Yuan couldn't hold it in any longer and tried to hold back his smile as he looked at Rayleigh. How about this? He grabbed a handful of snow from the ground and made it into a snowball. You may not be able to catch this ball from me. Covered with armament haki, he suddenly threw it towards Lucci. Call out. The snowball flew out, causing a loud explosion. Don't play silly tricks. Lucci stretched out his hand to catch the snowball, but he missed. Didn't catch it? Lucci took a look at his palm and saw a big hole in the center of it. Hiss, ha! Lucci gasped and covered his hands with a ferocious look on his face. A hidden weapon! Lucci roared angrily. He looked up, just once, and he panicked. Shen Yuan, Lei Li and the others were weighing small snowballs in their hands, ready to start a big battle. Everyone is in combat mode. Lucci roared, not caring about the pain in his palm, and jumped up immediately, instantly transforming into a half-beast. A volley kick was thrown out to slash in the air. Call out! Shen Yuan easily dodged the slash and threw out another snowball wrapped in armed color. What the hell? Is this a cannonball? Liu Qi didn't dare to take it head-on. He used the power of paper drawing to narrowly avoid a snowball, but then saw a continuous stream of snowballs coming at him. Six King's Spear. Lucci clasped his hands tightly and attacked the snowballs fiercely, knocking down several snowballs one after another. It's so boring, it hurts, it hurts. Liu Qi looked at his empty palm with a frown on his face, then raised his head and rushed towards Shen Yuan. At this moment, CP9 member Keiku wanted to kick out Lan Jiao to interfere with Shen Yuan's actions. Call out! Rayleigh easily blocked it, drew out his sword and launched a rapid slash. Why is Rayleigh here too? Keiku's pupils shrank sharply. He immediately wanted to retreat, but his chest was torn apart instantly by the blow. Pfft! Keiku lost consciousness and fell suddenly on the snow. Storm kicks. Shen Yuan still dodged it easily, and quickly came to Liu Qi, pulling out the heaven-swallowing sword. A terrifying aura instantly filled the surroundings, and Lucci's pupils suddenly shrank. Pfft! A knife hit Lucci's chest, knocking him to the ground, and he fell heavily into the snow. The power of his fruit faded instantly, and he fell to the ground without a sound. Shen Yuan turned his head and looked to the side. Dark rainstorm. Tashiji wielded Shijer and easily knocked down Weik. Smoker fought 1 against 2 and knocked the remaining 2 CP members, Owl and Jabra, to the ground, leaving them without the power to fight back. Want to run? Shen Yuan moved in front of Bruno at high speed. As soon as his palm touched the door handle, he was knocked unconscious by a punch. Oh! Standing firmly on the snow, looking at the CP9 members lying in all directions, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Smoker, tie them up and put them on the boat. Smoker hesitated. He was a marine, strictly speaking a subordinate of the world government. Executing an order. The majestic voice sounded again, and Smoker immediately became busy. Smoker, you're awesome. You're awesome. Chapter 19. The King of Hell clicks Mao. Clap. Shen Yuan slapped him twice mercilessly. Liu Qi woke up slowly, as if waking up from a dream, and looked at Shen Yuan who was staring at him in surprise. A flash of fear flashed across his eyes. It was as if I had seen an evil ghost from the netherworld. What do you want? We are the world government. The lackeys of the world government? They are just a bunch of scum who do dirty things for the world government. Shen Yuan's words were like sharp blades, mercilessly sarcastic. Lucci gritted his teeth and tried desperately to break free from the ropes that bound him, but it was all in vain. I ask you questions and you answer them. Stop talking nonsense or I'll kill you. Lucci took a deep breath, weighed the pros and cons, and nodded helplessly. The world government sent you to seize the swallow fruit. Do you have any other mission? Lucci tightly closed his lips, seemingly unwilling to mention this issue. Pfft! Shen Yuan suddenly pulled out Tashiji's shijer and stabbed at Lucci's kidney like lightning. Lucci's eyes widened, his eyeballs filled with scary red bloodshot. Dashiki looked at Shen Yuan helplessly, cursing in her heart. You guy, you used my knife to torture me? Shameless! Scumbag! I ask again, what other tasks are there? Liu Qi still stuck to his beliefs and stubbornly kept silent. It's a tough nut to crack. Shen Yuan swung the knife again, and this time, the tip of the knife was aimed at Liu Qi's other kidney. Lucci's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Are you obsessive-compulsive? It has to be stabbed symmetrically. Lucci felt the pain on both sides of his waist as if they were torn apart. He gasped for breath and cold sweat poured out on his forehead like a flood. Pfft! This tricky knife slid along his empty palm like a poisonous snake and pierced into his arm. Wonderful! This knife skill! This is simply a divine knife skill! Tashiji's eyes sparkled with surprise. This knife is so precise that it would be impossible to do it unless one has extraordinary skills. Lucci could no longer bear the pain and let out a howl like a pig being slaughtered. The other CP members had beads of cold sweat on their foreheads, but no one dared to speak out to stop it. Forget it. I won't ask you any more. Just tell me. Pointing at Shijer in front of Ochida. Cold sweat instantly broke out on his forehead, and he was about to speak tremblingly. At this time, Liu Qi glared at Wei Yi fiercely, and for a moment he didn't know whether to say it or not. Pfft! Another knife stabbed into Lucci's other arm, also from top to bottom. Hey, Shen Yuan, do you want to eat barbecue? Rayleigh couldn't help but complain. Dashiki felt more and more distressed. Master, can you? No, your knife is very useful. Dashiki's face instantly fell and turned dark. What? Another hysterical scream spread throughout the cabin. Wei Chu was panicked, really panicked. We also have a mission to investigate the iceberg and Tom in the Seven Waters City. The world government suspects that they have the blueprints for the ancient weapon Pluto. Wei Chu told everything he knew like pouring beans, without any reservations. The most important thing now is to survive the devil in front of you. That's a good point, but I already know all these things. With one cut to the throat, Wei Yi was killed in the cabin. The victim even opened his mouth before he died, as if he wanted to tell some details of the incident. Come on, tell me, what other information do you have? If you don't satisfy me, you will end up like that kid. Keiku's forehead was covered with sweat. The brain, which originally only had 4 cores, is now running like crazy as if it had 8 cores. Here is some information about devil fruits. I wonder. Shen Yuan's eyes sparkled. Hey! Young man, you're on the right track. Keiku breathed a sigh of relief, and then revealed all the information he knew in front of the knife. The natural flame fruit is on Longchain Island. It seems to be in the hands of the local navy. There is also a user of the superhuman float fruit, who is right here. Where? An unprecedented light burst out in Shen Yuan's eyes. This was the devil fruit he had always dreamed of. Exist. Keiku's mind raced, wanting to use this information to make a deal with Shen Yuan. What the hell are you? I'm giving you face. Shijer reached out and stabbed Keiku in the ribs. What? Keiku wails in pain. He didn't dare to plot against Shen Yuan anymore and told everything he knew. Golden Lion, the user of the float fruit, may appear in the East China Sea. Okay, your answer satisfies me very much. So where exactly is the Golden Lion in the East China Sea? Kakyuka shell. He did not answer. Because he really didn't know about this. Cha-cha, I know where the Golden Lion is. It is on the nameless island in the East China Sea. It is said that the Golden Lion is gathering strength there again, preparing to accumulate power to rule the world. Shen Yuan's expression is weird. Unknown island? Can you tell me where the nameless island is exactly? Do you know why the nameless island is called the nameless island? The authors of some books are called anonymous. Are they really called anonymous? You've passed the test, you can live. Shen Yuan said calmly. Keiku, what about me? You? You can live half. Oh my goodness, it's the king of hell calling you. Rayleigh complained again. Khalifa is on her way here. Is this good information? Gabra had a sinister look on his face at this moment. Well, you are right. This is indeed very good information. Pfft. Gabra was hacked to death instantly, with a sinister and cunning smile on his face before his death. But you caused me psychological discomfort. A group of people were trembling with fear, and the entire cabin was silent for a moment. Brother, the higher-ups have noticed you. It seems that they want to recruit or eliminate you. It is said that they want to contact the Navy to encircle and suppress you. Shen Yuan touched his chin, very satisfied. What's your name? My name is Bruno. Very good, you can live, Keku you die. Why am I dead? Because you are too dangerous. You still want to threaten me in this situation. After that, without waiting for Keku to speak, a black arm pierced Keku's chest. Puff. Keku vomited a mouthful of blood and his head drooped weakly. Bruno, your fruit is very interesting. Do you want to follow me? Bruno smiled, his plan having worked, of course. Bruno has thought about it. Step 1, the moment you are freed from the restraints, open the door and escape. Step 2, escape to another island, who can find me? Ideal is full, the reality is very skinny. The terrifying armament Haki covered Shijer, and he cut off Bruno's right arm with one strike. Your future is no future. Bruno covered his broken arm in horror. His eyes were fixed on Shen Yuan, and at this moment he shouted without hesitation. Are you going to be an enemy of the world government? It doesn't matter. Another blow of the knife cut off Bruno's neck without any resistance. The neat cut even allowed one to see the reflection of the ceiling. Lucci, you should go with him too. Another sudden slash of the knife chopped off Lucci's head, which fell to the ground and rolled to Rayleigh's feet. Owl was the only one left on the field who was still breathing. At this moment, he was shaking uncontrollably and didn't dare to look Shen Yuan in the eye. Owl, you are the only one who counts as a human being among these people. You count as a hostage. The owl nodded like a chick pecking at rice, not daring to neglect Shen Yuan, the plague god. At the same time, Khalifa came over slowly with moon steps. As soon as they arrived at the Drum Kingdom, they saw a ship docked on the coast, which made Khalifa a little confused. Khalifa stopped on the deck. She couldn't get through on the phone, so she could only use the life card to find everyone to cooperate. He carefully entered the cabin. At first glance, he saw a scene that he would never forget in his life. Chapter 20. Is it true or false? This. Khalifa was stunned, the scene before her was as horrible as hell. The murderous demon turned around and looked at Khalifa, his eyes seemed to have turned scarlet blood red. You. Shen Yuan took a step forward. He quickly covered Khalifa's mouth and dragged her into the cabin, while Rayleigh considerately closed the cabin door. Snapped. A crisp slap instantly woke Khalifa up, and she came back to her senses from her daze. They. Shen Yuan stared at Khalifa in front of him, her fishnet stockings, sexy red lips, draped hair, and delicate face. Which man would not be moved by her? What a beauty! Shen Yuan was amazed. At this moment, even Khalifa's catchphrase had not been uttered. He did not dare to move at all. He just stood there and stared at Shen Yuan blankly. Tie him up first, then throw these bodies into the sea to feed the fish. Smoker, look at this beauty, let's go to the island. Kill the plot characters Wei Duo, Keku, Jabra, Rob Lucci, and Bruno, and your level will be raised to level 78. What a great harvest! Shen Yuan sighed secretly, allocated the 25 skill points, and then casually opened the System Properties panel. Name, Shen Yuan. Age, 14 years old. Identity, Adventurer. Skills, Navy 6 Styles, LV1, Swordsmanship Mastery, Max Level, Physical Enhancement, Max Level, Agility Enhancement, LV1, Strength Enhancement, LV1-5, Speed Enhancement, LV1, Armament Haki, Max Level, Observation Haki, Max Level, Conqueror Haki, Max Level. Immortal King Kong, 100/100, greatly increases physical strength, quickly recovers from injuries, grows any part of the body at will not die after suffering severe injuries. Agility, 60.5/100. Speed, 63.9/100. Demigod power, 100/100, greatly increases the destructive power of its own attacks. During battle, the god of death can enhance its own attacks, can enter the god of death state and damage the enemy's soul. The power enhancement changes again after reaching the maximum level. Level 78 reaches the upper limit after level 80. Shen Yuan nodded, which was equivalent to having a small-scale unlimited Shiki fusion. Feeling the power of the immortal diamond body, Shen Yuan is confident enough to fight against the world government at this moment. Now there are 80 Kaido in front of me. I can escape safely. I am not sure whether I can win or not. Can run for sure. As he walked into the island, Dalton, who was originally hostile to him, was now staring at the people in front of him with a serious look on his face. Excuse me, who are you looking for? I am here on behalf of the world government to investigate the whereabouts of the swallow fruit. Please assist me, Excellency. Dalton was stunned and stood there at a loss. Lead the way. Shen Yuan said righteously. This. Dalton considered it for a moment, and finally led everyone to the palace. At level 78, with the physique of an immortal diamond and full level 3 color domineering power, he could even harm the enemy's soul. At this time Shen Yuan was extremely arrogant. Anyone who stands in my way will die. Shen Yuan was thinking and unknowingly walked to the gate of the palace. Sir, the user of the swallow fruit from the Drum Kingdom is inside. Dalton said tremblingly. Understood. Dalton turned away and breathed a sigh of relief, then thought about what had just happened. The god of death Shen Yuan with a bounty of 530 million berries and the god of hell Rayleigh with a bounty of 1 billion berries. Are these people investigating the swallow fruit on behalf of the world government? Dalton shook his head. No matter what they did to Valpo. It's none of your business. To put it bluntly, I am just a security guard. Are you still concerned about the international situation all day long? Thinking of this, Dalton felt relieved. After being knocked back more than 10 meters by Lucci, he understood. Don't force yourself to fit into a circle that you can't fit into. As for Shen Yuan and his party, they simply explained the situation to the guards, and were then casually allowed into the palace by the guards, who seemed to have no scruples at all. The country is not peaceful recently. One of the guards said worriedly. Another guard nodded in agreement. 2 princes are fighting for the throne, and now officials from the world government have come knocking on our door. Things haven't been peaceful in recent years. The former nodded in agreement. Just do your job well and don't cause trouble. The battle that just happened has already affected the villagers in the country. Some villagers who witnessed the entire fight and conversation told their friends. Word of mouth spreads from 1 person to 10, and from 10 to 100. Under this circumstance, an explosive piece of news spreads like wildfire. Have you heard? The world government officials started an internal conflict, killing their own colleagues in order to fight for the second prince's devil fruit. Have you heard? World government officials are going to the palace to kill the second prince, then the eldest prince, and finally the king to fight for the throne. Have you heard? The world government is launching a demon-killing order against the Drum Kingdom. Fuck? Is this true? When entering the palace, the first thing I saw was the extremely ugly eldest prince kneeling beside the old king, reporting something. The old king looked at Shen Yuan and his group entering the palace, and he knew at first sight that they were not friendly. Officials of the world government, what can I do for you? Shen Yuan curled his lips and said, I am Rob Lucci, a member of CP. I asked the old king to hand over the swallow fruit users and all the devil fruits to make up for the loss of Tian Shangjian. The old king's pupils shrank sharply. Gold from the sky? We delivered it on time. Then I don't care. Tashiji was stunned. She was a great swordsman after all, so why was she acting like a child? Too deceiving. Shen Yuan raised his leg and rushed forward, with a whip-like kick like a razor, hitting the eldest prince hard. Oh! The eldest prince was knocked away and landed on a pavilion pillar in the distance. Oh! A big hole was knocked open in the pavilion pillar. Shen Yuan brushed the dust off his clothes and stared at the old king with burning eyes. We will do it. The old king sighed and finally compromised. Several guards were called in, and then sent away. In a moment, he came forward with another cart, and then left quietly. Shen Yuan was overjoyed when he saw the devil fruit in front of him. There is still one. Shen Yuan spoke without any emotion. Who's looking for me? You're such an ignorant fellow. Shen Yuan turned around and looked. What a handsome man with regular features. Even Qiwa, who lives downstairs, wouldn't want to call out to her when she sees this person. Valpo looked at them. I felt scared for no reason. Just as he was about to turn around and run away, he was grabbed by the owl. Zababa, Zababa. Sir, please deal with it. Shen Yuan spoke calmly. On behalf of the world's highest authority, the world government, I execute the user of the swallow fruit, Valpo, on the spot. Shen Yuan didn't say much nonsense, and still raised his foot. The blow hit his chest hard. Vomit. Valpo spat out a mouthful of blood and knelt on the ground dying. Watching this scene, the old king frowned. He naturally knew what kind of people his two princes were like. He is arrogant and domineering, bullies the people in the village, and robs people by force. But there is no way, it is our own seed. Poor parents in the world. Just as the old king was sighing, Smoker, with a dark face, pushed a cart of fruit and placed it next to Valpo. Seeing that the fruits were in place, Shen Yuan stopped talking nonsense. Raise your fist and smash it hard. Valpo's head exploded. Judging from the manner of death, he must have been dead beyond death. Chapter 21. Winning a new partner. Kill the plot character Valpo, and your level will be raised to level 80, reaching the peak. A breakthrough mission will be issued. Breakthrough mission, raise the 4-dimensional attributes to the maximum level. In other words, there will be no reward if you kill again before that. Thinking of this, Shen Yuan felt a pain in his balls. On second thought, I still need to travel to a few islands, and adjust various skills a little bit, and finally I can max out all 4 dimensions. The future is bright. Shen Yuan, who was awarded skill points, added all of them to agility enhancement, slightly raising the agility attribute bar. Shen Yuan walked up to Rayleigh and said seriously. You stay here and take the devil fruit that transfers energy at any time. We will retreat first. After saying that, several people slipped away in an instant, leaving Rayleigh alone in the mess in the palace. Your Majesty, I am sorry to bother you so much. Pluto Rayleigh, are you also working for the world government? The old king shook his head unwillingly. Rayleigh didn't say anything, just sat down and drank quietly. The old king had no intention of staying any longer, so he stood up, helped the prince up, and went into the harem. And at this moment, Shen Yuan and his group had just walked slowly onto the street. All the villagers closed their doors and windows upon hearing the news, and seemed to be very resistant to these outsiders. Did you kill the second prince, Valpo? The boy with black hair, white clothes and a cross scar on his forehead spoke timidly. His hands were holding onto the door, and they seemed to be trembling slightly. Shen Yuan smiled, lowered his body, touched the little boy's head, and calmly advised. Valpo deserves death for bullying others with his power. You shouldn't mourn for him. The boy clenched his fists in anger, his eyes were tightly closed, and 2 lines of hot tears flowed from them. A moment of silence. I will mourn for that bastard. I will mourn for that bastard. The little boy's extremely suppressed heart seemed to be liberated at this moment, and he couldn't stop sobbing. Shen Yuan was at a loss when he saw this scene and looked at Dashiki blankly. I'll do it, master. Dashiki bent down slightly, stretched out her hand and clenched her fist, patiently persuading. Child, what did you go through? Do you want to tell your brothers and sisters about it? When the boy heard this, his excitement eased a little. Brother, can you take me out to sea? I know you are not officials of the world government. You are either pirates or navy. Shen Yuan's face darkened. I am an adventurer, different from the evil pirates. The boy nodded silently, but still said firmly, I want to follow you to the sea. He smiled and nodded, patted the boy on the shoulder, and followed him into the house. Child, what is your name? Joan. Your name is nice. Shen Yuan praised. Where is your family? Dusky asked curiously. At this point, the boy's expression darkened, and he told everyone everything he had experienced. 5 years ago, my father moved me here, and I was looking forward to living like this. My father is a doctor who has some medical skills and makes a living from this. Although it is still hard, we still enjoy it. But what happened next almost made me collapse. That day, my father and I rescued a seriously wounded pirate on the coast. The pirate was very generous and promised to give us a reward for saving him. But we tried our best but still couldn't save that pirate. Before he died, he placed a fruit with patterns on it in my father's hand, saying it was a legendary secret treasure, and then he died. Shen Yuan ate the dry food on the table and nodded vigorously. Joan's face darkened. How can this person eat so fast? He ate several days' worth of food in a short time. That bastard Valpo found out about this. Walpo sent a large number of guards to my house to ask for devil fruits, and finally imposed a crime of colluding with pirates on my father. My father took all the blame, and I survived because of it. Yes, it's something that Valpo would do. Shen Yuan nodded. My father was executed, and I could only secretly see a doctor every day to support myself. I have always wanted to kill Valpo to avenge my father, but I am too weak, I am too weak. Shen Yuan touched Kaiyang's head again and said solemnly. Since your father has passed away, it was his long-cherished wish to see you grow up happily. Kaiyang nodded. Now that his revenge had been achieved, he no longer worried about it. Come, be my crew member. I will take you to explore this world, help you become stronger, and let your name as a miracle doctor spread throughout the world. Kaiyang was so excited by what Shen Yuan said that she agreed without thinking and hugged Shen Yuan's arms. This was the first time in recent years that he felt the arms of another person. The solid and safe arms made him feel particularly warm, and all the haze in his heart was swept away. After saying this, Shen Yuan turned to look at Owl and said, Go back to Marijoa in a while. I will tell you what you are going to say next after we get on the boat. Of course you can tell the truth, but you will die faster. The voice was not loud, but it revealed a chilling murderous aura. The owl didn't waste any words and just nodded without even frowning. Kaiyang was secretly surprised when watching this scene. Is it so easy and comfortable to threaten world government officials? Pack up and get ready to leave. Shen Yuan pushed open the door and looked at the silent street. From time to time, a big bear with a crutch appeared and saluted him. Shen Yuan also returned the salute without any neglect. Young man, do you want to try my special medicine? My special medicine can cure all diseases. Shen Yuan looked down. Good guy, acquaintance. Shilya look. Joba's poor old father. Hilu look. Shiruluk was stunned for a moment and nodded. Don't cheat me anymore. Here are 50,000 Baileys. Use them first. Shen Yuan took out a bag of Baileys from his coat pocket and threw it into Shiruluk's hands without hesitation. My name is Shen Yuan. If you have anything to say, tell me my name. I believe this name will make everyone afraid in the future. Ziluluk stared at the scene in a daze, then bent down and bowed to Shen Yuan. Thank you, I will repay this favor. Shen Yuan waved his hand, looked at Kaiyang and Dashiki and the others who had finished packing, then turned around and left Kaiyang's house. Ziluluk did not leave, but stared blankly at the figure in front of him gradually disappearing. At this point, he completely gave up the bad habit of deceiving. Instead, I will use this money to continue studying my dreams. Back on the ship, all the bloodstains had been cleaned up by Smoker, and there was no sign that a torture had just taken place on the entire ship. Looking at Khalifa tied in the corner, Shen Yuan smiled slightly. Khalifa, follow me. I will take you to explore this world and break the shackles that bind you. Khalifa was still struggling. She hadn't taken the devil fruit yet, but the rope was enough to make Khalifa drink 2 taels of water. Khalifa, let's make a deal. You only need to stay on my ship for a month. It's up to you whether to go or stay. Khalifa stopped struggling, and Shen Yuan loosened Khalifa's restraints, hugged Khalifa tightly and whispered in her ear. Khalifa, I know you have been trained as a weapon since childhood. But to me, you are an ordinary girl, a sexy girl who couldn't be more ordinary. Khalifa blushed and said softly, You are sexually harassing me. Let's get to know each other, Shen Yuan. From now on, just call me boss. Starting today, you will be my personal secretary. And Dashiki. At this time, my teeth are grinding so hard that sparks are coming out. Chapter 22. The whereabouts of the evil fruit. The group hits the road again. Rayleigh stared at Shen Yuan who was holding Khalifa in his arms, and a wave of resentment emerged from time to time. That expression seemed to say I'll draw a circle and curse you. Shen Yuan was very satisfied looking at the devil fruit in front of him, which made him unable to help but take out the devil fruit illustrated book and began to flip through it page by page. Devil fruit encyclopedia. Rayleigh asked in surprise. You old bastard, are you scared? Shen Yuan said proudly. Can I? Let me show you. I'm too lazy to look at these junk fruits. See if there's anything valuable. The rest of the junk will be sold. Rayleigh took the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia, opened it with hope, and his eyes became brighter the more he read. Smoker. Why do you punch like a woman? Are you still my apprentice? The roar startled Rayleigh. He looked at the two of them, adjusted his glasses, and lowered his head to continue looking through the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia. Smoker continued to hit the scarecrow seriously, quietly feeling the energy of his own armament haki. Stop the boat in front. Stop the boat for me. After saying that, dozens of pirate ships gradually surrounded Shen Yuan and his group. Oh! Shen Yuan was stunned. This was the first time he had ever met someone who was looking for trouble. You are. We are the Mafia, you'd better obey us and don't let our hands be stained with blood. The leader wore a black hat and a suit. A complete scoundrel, with a burning cigar in his mouth. A gang in the underground world that doesn't know how to live or die. Shen Yuan thought secretly. How could there be a mafia in Grand Line? Rayleigh took a look and ignored it, continuing to look through the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia. Smoker also took a look, but ignored it and continued practicing his boxing. Khalifa took a look and ignored him, standing behind Shen Yuan waiting for orders. Smoker, go and teach them a lesson. Shen Yuan didn't care anymore and fell headfirst onto the recliner. Smoker moved his neck and wrists slightly, then lit a cigar with a smile. The look in his eyes when he looked at the Mafia was full of desire to fight. I'm going to stretch my muscles today. Smoker shot out into the air and turned into smoke, rushing straight towards the leader in front of him. Fire! There was a crackling sound of gunfire from several surrounding ships. Without exception, all the bullets penetrated Smoker's body and shot into the sea, making a series of whoosh 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 sounds. Smoker also moved at this moment, stretched out his right hand, and roared passionately. White fist! Plus! The fist formed by the smoke was like a cannonball, hitting the leader's face hard. Oh! The leader was instantly knocked into the sea by this punch, and the rest of the gunmen stood there in a daze. It's a natural devil fruit user. It's a natural devil fruit user. Everyone, pay attention. No, the whole army retreats. Everyone fled in all directions. It was like a cat catching a mouse. Smoker the White Hunter took over again. Fight with these pirates until dawn. White Snake. Plus. Smoke Shock. Plus. Shen Yuan was looking at the navigation compass at this moment. The compass turned for a while and finally pointed to the route to Alabasta. Boy, here's a very interesting devil fruit. It has great potential. Rayleigh pushed up his glasses and held in his hand a transparent white devil fruit with patterns all over it. Oh? Tell us more. Rayleigh continued to push up his glasses, looking mysterious. This devil fruit is a superhuman paper fruit that can generate paper to attack. This fruit has great potential. The power released by this fruit after awakening is also very impressive. Each piece of paper is as sharp as a knife and can also produce explosions. There are also some abilities that can be developed. In short, the potential is huge. No, it's rubbish. Shen Yuan waved his hands and refused. Rayleigh smiled and handed the swallowing fruit to Shen Yuan again. This is the swallowing fruit you want. This fruit also has a very high upper limit. It is a bit like the ability to swallow, but it can only transform, not absorb. No, this is not my purpose for getting the swallowing fruit. My goal is to use this fruit to make money, lots of money. Rayleigh was stunned and stood there without saying a word. This fruit can eat garbage and transform it into useful things, such as wood, steel, and some other minerals, which are still to be developed. Shen Yuan smiled and handed the paper fruit to Khalifa, and said with a smile, "Do you want to eat it?" Khalifa was somewhat moved. This fruit was undoubtedly very suitable for her. You really want to give it to me? It's okay if you don't want to eat this fruit. I'll find another mythical beast fruit and give it to you. You must go to the underwater prison when you have time. Khalifa. Undersea prison. Rayleigh and Tashiji's mouths were wide open, and their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Is the undersea prison a place you can go whenever you want? Dashiji said unhappily. It's okay, just treat it as a trip. Shen Yuan smiled, looked at Smoker who was still fighting in the distance, and nodded secretly. Master, these people have lost their fighting ability. I have tied them all to a boat. Shen Yuan nodded, and without knowing when, he had picked up a book and was reading it non-stop. Without even looking at the prisoners, he just said. Stab them to death and throw them into the sea to feed the fish. Remember to do it cleanly. Smoker was stunned. Why does it seem like you are the mafia? When the mafia boss heard these words, he instantly lost his composure. Are we the mafia or are you the mafia? No, no, big brother, we know the whereabouts of the legendary extremely vicious devil fruit. Oh. Shen Yuan put down the pornographic book and looked at the flustered mafia boss. It is the legendary vicious devil fruit, the natural dark fruit. It has the ability to rob other ability users, which makes people extremely afraid. Go on. Shen Yuan said lightly. That devil fruit is on an island under Kaido's control. Now the island is heavily guarded by Kaido, and a large-scale search is being carried out on the island. This time we are going out to sea to find the devil fruit. Kaido's island. Shen Yuan held his chin and began to think carefully. Undoubtedly, eating the dark fruit can greatly improve one's own strength, but the gravity fruit can greatly enhance one's ability to pretend. Shen Yuan became more and more excited as he thought about it, and finally he set his sights on the system. This wall-breaking system has not moved since it reached level 80. There has been no news for a long time. What day has it been? Shen Yuan was still in deep thought as he continued to explore several islands to gain skill points, maxing out his speed and agility, hoping that the system would give him something decent this time. Okay, I'll let you go. Go ahead. The mafia boss seemed to have been pardoned and began to break free from the ropes that bound him. After squirming for a long time, he found that he couldn't break free, and finally turned to Smoker for help. Shen Yuan seemed to have thought of something, and the devil's whisper came from his mouth. Remove one of his arms before you let him go, so he doesn't hurt anyone else. After saying that, Shen Yuan turned and went into the captain's room, no longer caring about the matter. Smoker chuckled and pulled out the 10 arms he had made in the past few months from behind. Although there is no sea stone, it is not needed. Now the 10 hands can be covered with armament domineering, which is even more powerful. Smoker had a smile on his face, but when he looked at the mafia boss, he realized something was wrong. It was like looking at lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Mafia boss! Let me go! I'm a mafia guy! Do not! You cannot! Ah! Chapter 23, The First Shen Yuan Meeting. The group arrived at Alabasta. Shen Yuan Li and his companions entered the kingdom. Smoker was still left on the boat by Shen Yuan. Smoker. Tired, destroy. Arrival at the kingdom of Alabasta, obtain skill points 5. All 5 skill points are added to speed enhancement. Shen Yuan instantly felt his whole body clear and it seemed as if his weight had been reduced. Walking into the desert. Shen Yuan glanced. Several guards in the distance were rushing over here, looking very anxious. Rayleigh also noticed this scene, and the lenses of his glasses flashed in the sunlight. This kingdom seems to be more prosperous than when I was here last time. Rayleigh exclaimed sincerely. Cobra is my good friend, let's go see Cobra. Shen Yuan said reluctantly, you old man, you're going to see the king? If you want to go, go by yourself. I'll take a look around. Then I'll go by myself. See you later. After Rayleigh finished speaking, he rushed towards the palace. Shen Yuan and his companions entered a tavern. As soon as I walked in, several people sat in a corner. The waiter is serving wine. Shen Yuan opened his mouth, and a waiter came over quickly, smiling and greeting everyone, what would you like to drink? 3 rums and 1 orange juice. The guy went down with a smile. Shen Yuan's eyes became dishonest and he looked around as if he was looking for someone. What are you looking at, master? Dashiki asked curiously. Look, that. Shen Yuan spoke with a look of horror. Dashiki followed his gaze and looked over. As a result, I saw a woman with scantily clad clothes and big breasts who was drunk and acting crazy. And with every word spoken, the waves surged more violently. Good fellow. Master. Dashiki's back teeth were almost broken, and she hit Shen Yuan on the head with an iron fist of love. These people are comfortable, but the 5 elder stars are not. Holy Land, Marie Joya. There was already a quarrel in the conference room, with several old men arguing with each other, and the topic revolved around Shen Yuan. Shen Yuan is an unstable factor, so he should be eliminated as soon as possible. So I have sent CP9 to notify the Navy to send a general to encircle and suppress them. Another old man shook his head and argued, this is a perfect chess piece. It can be used as our sword to consolidate our position. Why can't we use the means of winning over a perfect chess piece? I also think that this person is a pawn and should not be eliminated so soon. A few old men argued for a long time but couldn't come to a conclusion. Report, a CP member has returned, and seems to have important matters to report. A sound suddenly came from the den mushi next to the old man in black. Okay. The old man in black leaned on his walking stick and suddenly pounded it into the ground. What can't be said over the phone? It's a very urgent matter, about the death of a CP member. The old man in black paused, nodded, and motioned him to enter the meeting room. Boom boom boom. Owl knocked on the door and came in, looking nervously at the majestic 5 elders in front of him. Go ahead. The old man in black said calmly. The bounty of 530 million berries is on death god Shen Yuan. During our mission to the Drum Kingdom. Kill all my other teammates, and then force me to reveal the information about the world government. The owl looked indignant and continued. I compromised and temporarily gained his trust, and then I left quietly when the time was right. The old man in black listened with a gloomy expression, but the more he listened, the more he felt something was wrong, and he looked at the owl with a scrutinizing expression. You said that you gained his trust and then ran away secretly. The owl nodded. Why did he kill all your teammates and leave you alone to deliver the message? Owl was stunned and suddenly remembered what Shen Yuan had said to him before. Even if you tell the truth, you will die faster. This sentence was like a bolt from the blue, causing a huge wave of shock in his heart. Answer me, why did I leave you alone? A majestic aura suddenly burst out from the old man in black, scaring the owl who was in deep thought into a cold sweat. Me. The owl didn't dare to speak, and his hands clasped together proved that he was very scared. What? A huge force suddenly hit the owl's chest, causing it to scream out in surprise. Invisible pressure pressed on its heart, and the owl's face gradually turned pale. Until finally he lost all sound and fell heavily to his knees on the ground. Obviously, he is dead and cannot die anymore. The old man in black had a scowl on his face, and his hand holding the walking stick was shaking slightly with anger. What a great hand! It's no wonder I wanted to use the Admiral to get rid of him. It's really troublesome. The old man in a white robe with a samurai sword on his waist folded his arms and looked at the scene in front of him without any emotion. We are now too busy to handle everything. There are too many irresistible factors after Roger's death. The old man in white robe grinned and continued, as for Shen Yuan, I suggest that we temporarily send a secret force to keep a close watch on him. This is the only way for now. The old man in black lowered his head in thought. Information shows that Shen Yuan was born in Fengch village, and his parents are both villagers of Fengch village. His parents died in a shipwreck while fishing, and he was washed to the village of Kokozia by the rapids. Should we issue a demon-killing order to Windmill village? The old man in black laughed dumbly. It's just like this, I make a move and the navy takes the blame. I will not take the blame for this harm to the people. That old guy Garp is very difficult to deal with, and now Shen Yuan has inherited Garp's legacy. We don't know the specific strength either. Now we just need to contain Shen Yuan and not make any big trouble. The old man in black nodded and agreed with this statement. After the meeting, the old man in black walked out with a gloomy face. Before leaving, he glanced at the owl kneeling on the ground and shook his head. Such a clumsy plan, do you really think I'm a fool? How are the preparations regarding the 4 emperors going? The old man in white robe asked calmly. These pirates will soon know who they are. The old man in black smiled and walked out of the meeting room. The first meeting against Shen Yuan ended here. At this time, Shen Yuan had no idea that he had been identified as an unstable factor. His decisions were proposed again and again, and overturned again and again. The group did not stay in Alabasta for too long. They had no interest in visiting the royal nobles or the king. So they all returned to their own ships. Next stop is Sky Island, let's go. Is there really a Sky Island? Smoker was shocked, his face full of disbelief. Of course there is a natural devil fruit on Sky Island. Shen Yuan looked up in the direction of the Sky Island, and then he remembered that there seemed to be a small island below the Sky Island. Where's the old man? He hasn't come yet? Forget it, let's not wait for him, let's go. The ship set sail again. Rayleigh finally arrived, jumped high and stepped onto the deck, holding a bag of Baileys in his hand. How's it going? I'm awesome. Rayleigh smiled, reached out his hand, and handed a bag of Baileys to Shen Yuan. How about it? Just treat it as my food allowance for this period of time, how about it? Shen Yuan took it with a smile, threw it into Dashiki's hands and smiled. Old man, you understand the ways of the world. Chapter 24. Target, Sky Island. Arrive at Gaia Island and obtain skill points 5. After adding 5 skill points to enhance his agility, Shen Yuan strode into the island. Brothers, get to the island. The voice instantly reached Shen Yuan's ears. He turned around and saw an old acquaintance. As luck would have it, Marco also happened to come here to carry out a mission, and at this moment he was summoning his own brothers to the island. Brother Shen Yuan, is that you? Long time no see. Marco extended his hand towards Shen Yuan enthusiastically. Shen Yuan didn't act pretentiously and also extended his hand, and the two of them shook hands. Last time we parted, I admit that I was impulsive. I was wrong, brother. Marco scratched his head and said embarrassedly. Shen Yuan smiled and said, I was a little impulsive, and I was also wrong. The two of them walked into the island arm in arm, and everyone behind them couldn't help but have question marks in their heads. Everyone? Weren't they fighting fiercely a few days ago? Do you know the specialties of Gaia Island? They are delicious. While Marco enthusiastically introduced the food to Shen Yuan, he looked around at the pirates on the island. Old Ma, what is your mission here? Marco was stunned, looked around, and said to Shen Yuan quietly. This time, I came here to gather information about the surrounding pirates. After all, there are only a few people in this sea area who dare to challenge our father. Shen Yuan also lowered his head in thought. Marco was right. There were only a few people who dared to challenge the Whitebeard pirates. Charlotte Linlin, Kaido, Golden Lion, and even Doflamingo. But this was 1510, and some forces had not yet grown strong. Nowadays, middle-aged women don't give birth to children as crazily as old sows. Old Ma, I think you can focus on observing Kaido. Kaido. Marco also began to ponder, but was interrupted by a loud shout from behind. Hey, this is my territory. Pay the protection fee before you enter the island. A man with black hair and a pirate group logo tattooed on his chest was looking at Shen Yuan and the others with his hands in his pockets arrogantly. Hey, you, do you know who you are talking to? One of Marco's minions pointed a knife at Bellamy with a malicious look in his eyes. Kinetic acceleration. Bellamy turned one hand into a spring and pressed it to the ground, starting to accumulate strength. At the same time, he looked at the speaker and licked it with his tongue, revealing a mouthful of big white teeth. He gave a ferocious smile and disappeared instantly. Spring Death Punch. Swoosh bang. Bellamy continued to dive and suddenly shot out like a cannonball, aiming directly at the minion who had just spoken. Oh! A loud collision sound suddenly erupted, and smoke instantly filled the surroundings. When the smoke cleared, Bellamy let out a terrible scream. Ah! Let go! Let go! Shen Yuan held Bellamy's hand, his eyes were sinister and fierce. You evil little pirate, I will personally. Shen Yuan shook his head, as if that sentence was more domineering. I have seen your future, and your future is no future. Bellamy? Shen Yuan squeezed Bellamy's fist with a little force, causing it to crackle. Oh my god! Get out of here! It hurts. I was wrong, I was wrong. The hyena pirate's vice-captain, Sachis, brandished his scimitar and strode forward to rescue Bellamy. The scimitar was towards Shen Yuan, but he didn't notice Kaian who was standing by and ready to attack at any time. Oh! Joan used his right leg to side kick, knocking Sachis to the ground, and then followed up with a storm kick. Lanjiao! The blue-white slash came through the air, and was about to hit Sachis. But it was instantly intercepted by a cannonball. White Fist. Smoker shot out his smoke fist in an instant, and it landed heavily on the gunner Rebus. He was knocked unconscious instantly. His eyes rolled back and he fell to the ground with a bang. Oh! Libas flew backwards more than 10 meters and fell among the crowd in the distance. Beat someone, beat someone. The villagers fled in all directions, noisy and terrified. At this time, Shen Yuan looked at the two people fighting in front of him with satisfaction and praised them sincerely. Really my right-hand man. Joan blushed, thanks to the captain's teachings. Gah! Bellamy's palm was broken by Shen Yuan, and he used force again. His fist was like a piece of dough, completely limp. He loosened his grip and kicked Bellamy away. After flying into the air, Bellamy suddenly felt something was wrong. Really? A gust of wind came from the chin. A fist as big as a sandbag gradually emerged. A perfect rising dragon fist was delivered. A huge force poured onto Bellamy's chin. The former's face was sunken by the punch and he had lost consciousness. The latter did not stop at all, his right leg was like a razor, kicking Bellamy hard and embedding him at the foot of a mountain. Oh! Gravel flew, wood chips flew everywhere, and Bellamy was silent. Defeat the plot character Bellamy and obtain skill point 1. Why only a few skill points this time? Is it because this person is just too useless? Regardless of all this, Shen Yuan turned around and smiled at Marco. It's quiet now, Lao Ma, we won't go home until we're drunk today. Marco reacted and nodded, okay, we won't leave until we're drunk. The little minion who had just been rescued by Shen Yuan looked at Shen Yuan with gratitude and followed Shen Yuan into a tavern. Guest, what would you like to order? The tavern owner was trembling with fear, looking as if he couldn't get out of it. Bring on the good wine and good food. Today I will drink to my heart's content with Ma Gan. Lao Ma. The tavern owner did not dare to neglect the matter and immediately ordered the kitchen staff to prepare the dishes. Then he came forward with a flattering look on his face, holding 2 bottles of treasured rum in his hands. A special gift, everyone, enjoy your meals and drinks. The tavern owner smiled and put the rum on the table. Shen Yuan nodded and did not refuse. Brother, what are you going to do next? The tavern was empty at this time. Everyone was frightened by the fight just now and fled in all directions. No one wanted to offend this man. I'm going to enter the Sky Island from here. Just after saying this, Marco was a little confused. Does Sky Island really exist? Isn't it said that it is just a legend? Shen Yuan shook his head. Sky Island is real, just like the great secret treasure is real. As soon as these words came out, the whole place fell into silence. Shen Yuan continued, to be honest, there is a devil fruit on Sky Island that I am very interested in, so I am going to Sky Island to get it back. What is it? Marco continued to ask. Thunder fruit. But I am not going to eat it. I am going to give this fruit to my crew members to ensure their strength. Marco nodded, just like his own pirate group, he treated the crew members as his own family. If possible, there is something I would like to cooperate with Newgate on. Shen Yuan said mysteriously. Marco was stunned. It was the first time he heard someone call his father Newgate. But Marco didn't care. He didn't say anything, but signaled Shen Yuan to continue with his eyes. I learned some valuable information about devil fruits from the world government's intelligence members. There are even natural devil fruits. Let's cooperate and rob the treasures of other pirate groups. How about a 50-50 split of the reward? Marco lowered his head and fell into deep thought. In a moment, everything returned to normal. I will propose these things to Dad. Let's drink first, let's drink first. Marco avoided the topic. Such matters were not something he could have the final say on. Drink, drink. Shen Yuan raised his glass and started a banquet with everyone. Chapter 25. Help me pick up the pieces. The next day. Shen Yuan and his team have made all the preparations. Marco stood still. Watching Shen Yuan and Smoker and the others stepping on the moon and gradually disappearing into the sky. Is there really an empty island? Marco suddenly felt dazed. Boss, it's time for us to carry out our mission. A word from the younger brother behind him pulled Marco back to reality from the fantasy. Understood. As he spoke, he reached into his trouser pocket and pulled out a den mushi with a white beard. Anyway, we still have to report it first. Thinking of this, Marco called Whitebeard directly. On the other end of the phone, the lazy voice of Whitebeard came. What's wrong, Marco? Dad, I met Shen Yuan this time. Oh? How about it? Whitebeard also showed great interest. We drank happily this time, and our relationship became much closer. Shen Yuan also seems to be a person who values the crew, I think we can make friends with him. Whitebeard nodded, seeming very satisfied. Gulala. Not bad. But is that all? Marco continued. Shen Yuan proposed a cooperation. He has some information about devil fruits. He wants to conduct a major cleanup of the pirates on the Grand Line, and split the treasure he obtains with us 50-50. Whitebeard was stunned, pondering the pros and cons of Shen Yuan's plan. Indeed, if the intelligence of this cooperation is correct and they get a 50-50 split of the devil fruits, it will enhance the strength of their sons. However, the Navy and the world government will not sit idly by and watch such an action. Marco, the world government. Dad, Shen Yuan once said that he killed several CP members, and there has been no movement from Mary Gosa so far. In this case, Whitebeard hesitated for a moment and agreed after a while. Tell that kid that I've accepted the order. We only need 30% of the treasure, but he has to agree to one condition of mine. Marco said excitedly, Dad, you talk, I'm listening. I will tell him this in person after we meet. Marco nodded and took note of these words. Then it grew wings of green flame and chased after Shen Yuan and his group who were flying high into the sky. At this moment, a group of minions looked up steadily. They were stunned for a moment as they watched Marco fly high into the sky and disappear. The bird flew. Why are we going? We can't fly. Go drink. Shhhhhhh. Shen Yuan and Lei Li walked side by side, slowly ascending using the moon steps, with a group of people following closely behind them. In a moment, reach the Sky Island. Obtain skill points 5. Shen Yuan's eyes lit up. After allocating skill points reasonably, the agility attribute finally reached its peak. Battle-hardened body, 100/100, combo dodges are smoother, and different tactical responses can be made instantly when facing different opponents. At the same time, the flexibility of the body is greatly improved, making the body lighter. Seeing that his attributes had been improved, Shen Yuan's mouth curled up into an exaggerated arc. However, he didn't notice at all that several divine soldiers were striding towards him in the distance, looking very alert. Qinghai people, you need a ticket to enter Sky Island. Before the divine soldier finished speaking, Shen Yuan suddenly released his domineering color. He quickly knocked everyone unconscious and walked into the Sky Island so easily. Period. Shen Yuan kept looking around, as if he was looking for the location of the Sky Island Master. I guess there must be other good things from the Lord of Sky Island. Whoosh! Shen Yuan soared into the sky, overlooking the entire Sky Island. At this glance, the giant python sitting on the edge was taking a nap on the ground. Shen Yuan's eyes lit up and he swooped towards the python. Because the speed suddenly increased, the air around it was pulled out with bursts of sonic booms, leaving a white trail in the air. Everyone was stunned. What's going on here? Rayleigh smiled and said, Go get the devil fruit. Smoker, so what are we going to do? This time Rayleigh didn't answer. He simply sat on the ground and started drinking. On the other side, Shen Yuan has already arrived at the destination. Boom! The moment he landed, the clouds under Shen Yuan's feet were dented. Is this really the future? Shen Yuan closed his eyes, and scenes from the future came into his mind. Then he opened his eyes suddenly, stepped forward quickly and threw a punch. Oh! This punch knocked the python's head crooked. What? Enelu, who was hiding in the bushes in the distance, looked at this scene in surprise. Do I look a lot like this person? Enelu looked at Shen Yuan, then looked at himself. They both have no wings, have the same features, and even have some similarities in their brows. Boom! Another violent attack, large areas of clouds and mist were affected and scattered. The fog dissipated. The Lord of Sky Island was already dying. He had no intention of resisting at all and just lay in front of Shen Yuan. Enelu used his hands to block the invasion of fog, opened his eyes and saw this scene again. He was extremely surprised. Shen Yuan pressed his palm on the forehead of the Lord of Sky Island and smiled evilly. Should I take the treasure myself, or should I kill you and take the treasure? Lord of Sky Island. He seemed to understand Shen Yuan's meaning. He struggled, opened his mouth wide and spit out 2 devil fruits, which rolled all the way in front of Shen Yuan. Looking at one of the blue-patterned devil fruits under his feet, Shen Yuan smiled slightly. Come out, I see you. Enelu shuddered, so, we've been discovered after all. Staggering out of the bushes, the skinny little Enel was extremely frightened yet also extremely fanatical. Where are your parents, kid? Enel's eyes suddenly turned dark, as if he had something to hide. Then are you willing to become my teacher? Enel's eyes were full of surprise, and he nodded like a chick pecking at rice. Well, you're hungry, right? Eat this first. Shen Yuan reached into his backpack, took out some dried meat and handed it to Enelu. He took it with gratitude and was very happy. Master, are we going to Qinghai? Of course. As he was speaking, Shen Yuan took 2 steps forward and picked up Enelu. Let's go. Shen Yuan carried Enel on his back and picked up 2 devil fruits. He walked on the moon and disappeared in front of the Lord of Sky Island. The Lord of Sky Island breathed a sigh of relief. Just 2 punches. The first punch was just right, it made me dazed but didn't hurt my brain. The second punch was a bit heavy, breaking bones. The python spat out a mouthful of blood. There is one more sad snake in the world. Boo! Ha! Ha! Shen Yuan walked in the air using moon steps, as if he was still looking for something. High in the sky, the golden bell was standing there quietly. Shen Yuan's eyes widened when he saw it. God never fails anyone. Shen Yuan quickly went towards the golden bell. The fear that Enelo had originally felt was swept away at this moment. As he was staring at the novel scene in front of him, he couldn't help but shout. Incredible! Incredible! Shen Yuan kicked up and rang the golden bell. The sound of the golden bell resounded throughout the entire Sky Island, and the natives of Sky Island and the people of Shandia could hear it clearly. Boom! 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 The loud sound of bells surrounded the entire Sky Island. At this moment, whether it was the villagers, the divine soldiers, or the Shandians on the Sky Island, they all looked up at the sky. Boom! 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 The golden bell was smashed to pieces by Shen Yuan's punch. A huge force instantly poured down on it, breaking it into dozens of pieces and falling down. Rayleigh! Rayleigh! When Rayleigh heard Shen Yuan's call, he quickly stood up and looked at the sky. Help me pick up the pieces. Rayleigh! He understood and used his observation haki to instantly capture the movements of the surrounding debris. He turned and rushed out, frantically picking up the fragments of the golden bell. Smoker stood on the ground, pointing and saying, "Ah! There's another piece here. And there." After picking up for a while, Rayleigh's face turned red. After all, so many people are watching. Stop watching the show. Help me get 2 pieces.